Boop, boop, boop,
It starts streaming, so let's see if it pops up. What's going on, everybody? If you can hear us.
Get all this stuff rolling. Check you guys out here. Want to make sure that the channel is going. Oh, there we are.
Are we there?
We're live.
Are we live?
We're live.
If you guys just, we're going to get started at 4, but, let us know about the sound quality, if everything is sounding all right and, good quality there.
Sounds good on our end. Let us know where you guys are coming in from. So you guys are joining the chat. We're going to give it a few minutes before we get into. I have a couple questions from the vault that were asked, and so we'll get into those in just a minute. But when you guys roll in, let me know where you guys are from. I'm always curious to see where you guys are from, where you guys are rolling in from, and that kind of thing. Germany, got England. Let's see what else we got here. Eve's from England. Net says the quality's great. Netherlands, Canada, New York City, Orlando. Hope you're doing all right out there, brother. New York's getting hit hard. Madrid, United Kingdom, Ireland, California.
All over the place.
Nets from Sweden. Got Jason from Virginia, Aiden from Florida. We got Vincent from the Netherlands.
New Mexico.
Got Cole from Chicago.
I want to go to New Zealand right about now. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it's a pretty place. Oliver from Ohio. Patrick Fitzgerald from Ireland.
Hey, did you hear about Connor donating €1 million or whatever it is?
No, I didn't know.
That was really awesome of him to do that.
That's
actually
cool. What did he donate?
He
to?
donated to the coronavirus, kind of just to help the hospitals. I think
that's
stuff
awesome.
Like that. Yeah, it's pretty badass.
Yeah. It's a beautiful. I mean, when I'm going to go off on a quick rant while we're waiting for everybody to join in, and then afterwards we'll go. When you have something like this happen, like a disease and illness, again, it's not a good thing, right?
Sure.
But for sure, but it wakes you up from the sleep that you get caught into, because all of us, for the most part, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are people that have real friggin' problems,
yeah,
right? But generally in the affluent countries, for the most part, most people are living a pretty comfortable life, pretty easy life. And the biggest problem that most people run into is there's so much delicious food around, I can't stop eating it. What kind of iPhone do I want? The black one or the white one? I mean, just problems that are they're not real problems. Now some people obviously have real problems. They have family members that are dealing with something, or they have an illness or something. That's a given. But for a lot of times, for the most part. And we have now been woken up from our comfort dream to remind us that this whole thing, this whole existence, this is not guaranteed.
Right.
This is not, there's nothing safe about it. Any safety and security that you think you have, it's an illusion.
Yep.
And this whole thing that we have, this polished facade of society, can come crashing down around us like that. Right. And you can look at that as a bad thing, but to me, it kind of reminds me again, I look at it from a historical lens, right? Yeah. When you look at the 1918 to 1919 flu, right? Mm-hmm. Granted, the coronavirus is not the flu. It's not the Spanish flu. That Spanish flu wiped out so many more people. Yeah. It was a terrible thing. But those same people, they knew life was hard. They already knew it, right? Because these were the same people that came out of World War I, right? They lost millions to that. And these were the same people who on a yearly basis had measles, smallpox, tuberculosis knocking on their door. And, at the time, it was a pretty normal thing that if you had maybe 5 or 6 kids, you maybe got away with 2 of them. Right? Maybe 2 or 3 of them made it out of childhood, right? The rest of them died. Yeah. And this is something that we forgot, that, we've had a really good stretch for several generations now where life's been really comfortable, right? Especially in most of the Western countries, right? Where life's been pretty easy. Mm-hmm. And we're we forgot. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. I know. And again, you can look at that as a bad thing. But for me, I'm one of these people. I was actually in one of the post I actually put up on Instagram, there's a red mat. Yeah. Right. And people were why do you have a red mat there? And everybody wonders why I have that red mat.
Oh, that corner.
That one corner. Yeah. And most time people think that it's
they ran out of money.
They ran out of money. Chewy's a dumbass and ran out of money, or ran out of whatever. But I keep that mat there because we actually have a bunch of extra blue mats. I keep that red mat there because it reminds me of where I came from. It reminds me of all the experiences that led to me to get those blue mats, to have this gym, and I keep those in my back pocket. And I do that with negative experiences as well, right? Yeah. Because it grounds you back down a little bit, right? So you don't forget. So for instance, if I forget, if I get in on the mats and I'm maybe frustrated, I got to work tonight, I got to teach people jiu-jitsu and I'm really tired, I can go look at that red mat and remember, hey bro, remember what it took to get here? Remember when you were one of those people just dreaming you could do this? Right. Chipper the F up and go get out there and teach these people, right? So it kind of reminds me of that. And so when we get through this, right? And we will get through this 100%. We're going to get through this. When we get through this crisis, you can go back to sleep, right? You can go back to sleep, go back to your comfort, and just go nestle back into it. And you can think the worst is behind you and, kind of do that whole thing even until maybe 10 years from now, there's another global crisis, or, maybe a couple years from now, you have another, a really bad illness and you get woken back up. Or you can choose to remember it. You can choose to take that experience, put it in your back pocket. And you can remind yourself that, like, when things go back to normal and you're having these beautiful experiences with these beautiful people, things are going great, maybe you're back on the match training, instead of taking that stuff that we all do at times for granted, you go, hey, I remember that this isn't a guaranteed thing.
Right.
This whole thing could end tomorrow. And I'm really friggin' lucky to have all this. And so, again, just sort of going off on a quick tangent, guys, I think that, again, this is a rough situation that we're going through, but, you can look at that. There's a hidden gem in it. It's like you can remind yourself to stay awake for your life, stay awake for your existence when this goes back to normal.
Right.
And don't take all those beautiful, amazing things that you have day to day and take them for granted. And so, that, it's...
Take it, like for me, taking it as opportunity to almost reinvent yourself, like... everybody's taking time off of work, off of jiu-jitsu, off of, just normal daily things. Mm-hmm. And, try to work on something maybe that you didn't have the time to work on. Try to, build something in your life that you couldn't quite put the effort into it, Yeah. So as bad as this is, unfortunate, it's there's got to be there's silver lining there, something. So guys, it is a little bit past 4. We always ramble.
Yeah.
But thank you to our I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web CBD. They've been with us for a while and really appreciate them. They have the best CBD out there. Chewy and I always ramble about that. And then Epic Roll, BJJ. I got one of the shirts on right now. You can see it. Little sushi. I'm a big fan of sushi and a big fan of jiu-jitsu, so why not combine it?
It's a clever shirt. Yeah.
It is. It's kind of cool. So Chewy, let's get into it, man. You had some questions. We got some questions on the vault.
Yeah. So first off, big thanks to Brandon. Thank you for that donation to the chat. Appreciate you, brother. So yeah, let's take a look at some of the questions. So one of the questions I got asked on the vault was from Samu, and Samu was asking about kind of when it comes to the belts from white to black, what do I expect? Like, what do I expect from those? And again, that's each one of those has a lot of specifics that I can get into. And so to answer the question for you, Samu, without getting too deep into the specifics, I'll give you something to think about for each belt, and we'll kind of go through that. And for you guys, this might be useful. Now, I'll sort of throw a caveat to this. These different things are my sort of interpretations, my expectations for the belts. It's different for everyone, right? Everyone has their own way of going about this. There is no one way to do jiu-jitsu. And so these are my sort of ideas on it. So, but I think if you think about them, they might be useful to you as well. So the first thing is the white belt. To me, that's the survivor, right? When you come into jiu-jitsu, and we all know this, right? You come into jiu-jitsu, you have no idea what's going on. And even if you have an idea of what's going on, like you've seen jiu-jitsu, right? You haven't felt it yet. Feeling it is different than seeing it, because again, jiu-jitsu is not just about head knowledge. If it was, you could go watch a DVD and you'd be as good as someone else, but it's about the body, right? The body has to absorb all this stuff. And so when you come in, you're surviving most of the time, right? You're a person that's drowning, and then slowly you're starting to tread water and come up. And so for me, as I look at white belts, that first phase is to see that they begin to recognize the different positions. I can see this in a lot of times in my students when they begin to, if I say to do a move, they don't have to go through anything crazy to adjust. They just immediately get into the position, and then they begin to survive. Towards the end of that phase of the white belt, you start to see that they begin to mount offense, right? They go from a pure survival situation to they're holding their own, and then boom, you start to see them mount their own offense. And it's at that point that I then sort of look towards blue belt for them. And at that blue belt phase, again, you guys have heard me talk about this on the channel. If you've watched my videos, I call it the buffet belt, but it's the sampler. As a blue belt, you're it's almost like, and again, blue belt, the belt itself is not really important. What I'm talking about is the skill level that sort of matches up with it, right? The skill level that it takes for me to give a blue belt, that's what I'm looking at, not so much just the belt itself, because it's not like I give them a belt and magically they got better. It's the watching them progress, and then the blue belt is simply that stamp that says that they're at that point. when I give someone a blue belt, typically it's almost like you're giving a teenager the keys to the car, right? They've been cooped up forever in these positions, right? They've been cooped up, and now all of a sudden you give them the car and they begin to go drive around and kind of experience things for themselves. And going back to that analogy when you're surviving and you're drowning, it's like the drowning person that sort of waddles their way up to the surface and then climbs up into the raft of the boat. And now they can go exploring. They can go in different directions. And so as a blue belt, a lot of times you now have this newly found skill where you can go, I'm kind of good at jiu-jitsu, right? I'm still beginning, but I'm good enough to where I'm not getting smashed constantly. Let me try out all these different positions now that I have some basic fundamental foundation under me. And that's where typically as blue belts you'll start to see people play with positions that aren't simply the basic stuff, right? The fundamental stuff. You start to see them to dabble a bit. Now, towards the end of blue belt, you'll start to see this thing where they begin to sort of hone in on a particular position, right? They start to zero in on something, and that's typically where I start to promote people to purple belt, which to me is the prototype. Because at purple belt, typically you will see someone over the course of their purple belt phase begin to develop a position or a technique or something that is almost at black belt or is at black belt level. Like, Rich and Chad, two of my students, both had black belt triangle choke and triangle choke positions at purple belt. Now, their other parts of their game were still underdeveloped in comparison, but that one part of their game was incredibly good. My guard passing was a black belt. And again, maybe not a good black belt, but I could hang with black belts if I was passing. Now, if they got on top of me, I was screwed, but I wasn't good enough for that. But I could pass well. Eugene, you and Tim Huber both as purple belts had a black belt collar choke when you guys were training. You guys both had those collar chokes set up, and you were catching guys, and it's a really good choke. So at that point, once they have that really tight position where they've begun to develop the prototype. Because, even for me, I can look at my old purple belt matches and enrolling, and I can see who I am now back as a purple belt. Because I'm doing a lot of the same stuff, just different, right? Then it gets into the brown belt phase. And brown belt to me is the polisher, right? Brown belt's where you begin to flesh out some of those positions. So maybe as a purple belt, you begin to find that you're really good at half guard, right? So at blue belt, you started to dabble in half guard. Purple belt, you really begin to zero in on it. And then at brown belt, you begin to expand and really polish that position, make it a lot better. Again, all the other positions are getting better as well, but you're beginning to put that polishing touch on mostly your A game type stuff, as well as other stuff. And again, you're sampling the whole time, right? You're always sampling different techniques along the way. But then after that polish is put on, then you get to black belt, right? And you can see that brown belts are a lot of times very competitive with black belts. And then once you get to black belt, then you get into what I consider kind of you're now your own creator with this stuff, because now it's time to take all that stuff you've been learning, take off the any sort of worry about belts, the fact that you've probably been training for a long time, and now you can create something new, right? That to me, that's what it comes to the black belt, right? It's I've shared this quote numerous times, but the Charlie Parker quote, which is master your instrument, master the music, and then forget all that bullshit and just play. Music is your own experience, your thoughts, your wisdom, and if you don't live it, it won't come out of your horn. I think it's a beautiful thing, right? So again, you master all these lessons you're learning from your coaches and instructionals and everything else. You get into the rolling and you master your positions and all that stuff. And then you just say, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to just see what happens and I'm going to try stuff out. And then, a lot of times black belts will say that once you get your black belt, you start over. I think it's kind of true. And so again, then you begin to just play your own music. You get to play your own style, make stuff up as you go because you've got the ability to do that. Now, along the way, there are things for me personally as a coach that I look at because there's one side of it is absolutely the skill level. Yeah. But the other side of it is the culture stuff. Because again, one of the things that I'm really big on is the culture of the gym maintaining a certain feel to it. Right. Right. So for instance, if one of the things is that I want to notice is when these white belts begin to make themselves better and these blue belts begin to make themselves better, are they lifting up people with them? Right. Are they smashing people and then standing over top of them, or are they getting better and then pulling people up along with them? Because for me, I'm not going to promote assholes. I'm not going to promote people who put others down. I'm not going to promote other people that are negative towards, their brothers and sisters on the mat. I don't care how good you are. You could be amazing, but if you're negative towards other people, I don't want you. Because to me, it's like you become a problem, and to me, you're missing the whole friggin' point of this thing. And so to me, as people get better, to me, your whole point is as you're going up, remember, you're pulling people up along with you and we get better. We get better. As we all get better together, we only improve. You want to bring everybody else up with you. Like, again, as a coach, I was bringing people up with me so they could keep me sharp and make me better. Right. And so that's been the case. I want to see people that put in effort. You know, I don't care how talented you are. If I don't see you putting in the effort, if you're not putting in the time, I don't care. I'm not going to promote you. You know, if you're not listening, you know, it's again, if I give you something, again, I want to see that you're taking the lessons to heart, you know? And so there's a lot of cultural stuff or culture related stuff that is very important to me, just as much as the technique stuff, because I think that a lot of times with jiu-jitsu, whether you want to or not, you're getting lessons along the way that can translate off the mat. You just sometimes they're not spelled out to you in a different way. So
would you let somebody I mean, you probably know their character already before they get to brown belt or upper level brown belt. So would you already kind of shut that off at an earlier phase? Meaning, would you just say like, look, maybe this is not the right fit, or would you just promote them up to brown belt and then have them sit there? I mean, eventually they're going to want brown belt or black belt, right?
So if I had someone, you know. Sometimes the character, and it's a weird thing because sometimes people's character, kind of their true character, pops out.
Well, you've caught it early, I think, before.
Yeah, I've done it numerous times, right? Yeah. Like, but with people, like, you know, a lot of times you want to convert them. You want to like, look, like this mindset that you have
save you
is this mindset is not. It's not resourceful to you or the people around you. Let's drop it, you know. But you know, in a lot of cases, you know, it'll never get that far because I would never promote someone to purple belt if their character was off. Because, you know, now let's say that maybe they were doing really well and all of a sudden it surprised me as a brown belt. And then all of a sudden they became like a dick on the mat, which would be, I mean, I would surprise me. But what if they did? I wouldn't promote them and I would tell them. I would be honest with them because that's what I expect. You know, I was like, you know, you're not just in here to get really good at jiu-jitsu and smash people. I mean, that's a part of it, right? But there's a whole other thing that should be wrapped around that. And again, everybody has their own style in this, right? My way is not the right way. My way is just the way that I do it. And for me, like, there's a whole philosophy wrapped around this thing that isn't just simply get really good at jiu-jitsu and smash people. That's part of it. But there should be, to me, I just look at it as more than that.
Right.
And that's the way that I do things.
Well, I think that what you do is you give people chances and you give them opportunities. You let it be known kind of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Like, look, this is the way you're presenting yourself in the gym. This is what the environment it's building or causing. And then I think you kind of give them the opportunity to make that transition, make that change. And if they don't make that change, then I guess, you know, they know.
That's on them. I give people chances, you know, but it's on them.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, we did have a specific question, though. As far as white to blue, it's a big question for a lot of people. What do you look for between white and blue belt? So to get that, obviously, you know.
I already said, yeah. So, you know, first off, you got to check with your coach, but I already said, so you survive.
Right.
You then begin to nullify the offense and you become like almost stalemate type things.
Okay.
And then you begin to become offensive to some degree as a blue belt. Now, there's other things that have to be thrown into that equation. Like, what happens if you've got like a physical ailment? What if you have someone that, you know, maybe is, they have physical problems that won't allow them to roll hard.
Okay.
Or whatever.
Okay.
So there's all kinds of things. And also, like, you know, let's say if you're a wrestler, maybe you can smash people. Well, can you play guard? I'm not going to promote you. Like, I've had guys that had top positions because they were wrestlers that could smash guys that were like, you know, much better than them as far as skill level. But they didn't have a guard. If they got on their back, they were done. So I'm like, I cannot promote you to me until you get your guard position. And until you, because to me, that's the whole part of it, right? In the beginning, part of what you're doing is you're submitting to the process. And if you cannot say, all right, I trust you, I'm going to just play for my guard, I'm going to get beat up, and I'm going to get smashed in this position, but I know that it's going to pay off in the long term. If you cannot just trust me on that, then we can't get started.
Gotcha.
I can't promote you to the next belts because you're not getting it, right? But if you can submit to the process and say, listen, I'm really good at this one area, but coach is saying here, I'm going to trust that. I'm going to move forward. You know, if you can't do that, then, you know, whatever. But again, that's the process, you know.
Right.
Another question that I got here from, this again was from the vault, was from Greg C. He says, he's asking for what my favorite YouTube channels are for jiu-jitsu and my favorite instructors on YouTube are, or other platforms. You know, I can't say that I watch a ton of YouTube videos for jiu-jitsu. I watch sometimes, you know. A lot of times, like, I do have some instructional videos that I buy, you know, because I still like to learn from other people, and I like to see people do deep dives into their positions and stuff. You know, some of the instructors that I've learned through videos that I really haven't trained with or I haven't learned from too much was, like, I really like Marcel Garcia's style. A lot of his jiu-jitsu is very seamless from gi to no gi, and I really look for that because I don't like to be too reliant on one or the other. Andre Galval is another one that where, again, I really like his style, and he's very stocky and strong, and so I like looking at him. He's got a very like straightforward style guard passing. And still has some tricks from his guard and stuff like that. So I like it. And I also like the way that he teaches. He does a great job of like blending conceptual ideas with technical specificity, right? Where he basically, here's the technique that we're doing, here's why it works. We'll combine those together instead of just the technique or just concepts driven, right? That kind of thing. And then, you know, the one of the guys that I actually trained with before, but again, I really like his stuff through video, is Bernardo Faria. Again, I liked his style. He was one of the jiu-jitsu practitioners that I watched when I was coming up as a brown and black belt early on, because when he came onto the scene back in the day as a heavyweight, he was using the guard position that was kind of unusual for most people. People weren't using the guard as aggressively as he was, right? It just didn't happen at that weight. And so he was doing that, and it was really impressive to see. So I learned a lot from him.
Yeah, and as a big guy, he was pulling guard.
Yes.
You know, which again, pulling half guard, which is not something you really do a lot of times because it's easy to get smashed.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're not good at it.
You see it more now. But at the time, you didn't see it like that. It was really new for everything because he was just going, and he was aggressive with it. It wasn't like he would get down there and sit for a long time. He'd get down there and sit sometimes, but a lot of times he'd be coming up with sweeps and just going after it.
Right.
Let's see.
We'll run through some Q&A. Let's do it.
I still got one more question.
Oh, you got one more?
Yeah,
I
got more question. Basically, this one's from Matt Cassell. He was talking about my favorite type of weave or gi pants. And so Matt, like for me, I like gis that rip the hell out of people's hands. So, you know, like they have those really soft, they have those like really soft, like thin gis, the gis that are like ultra lightweight. I never like those gis because when you get one of those ultra light gis, you can grab material and it's so easy to hang on to. I remember like I had one of those ultra light gis and they had them for competition. It weighs like 1 pound or something. And I didn't like it. I gave it away to someone because it was too soft. I like gis that got a little bit of a little grit on them, you know, like where when you get a hold of them, if someone hangs onto your grip and you pull away, it's going to burn their hands. I like those. And so typically my favorite gis are a little bit, they're not heavy, but they're a little bit on the heavier side. I like gold weaves. They don't really make a bunch of those anymore, but those were good gis.
Okay.
They were heavy. They were heavier, but they were really like, they were harder for your opponent to hang on to. Like if anybody has ever felt like a judo double weave gi is a monster of a gi. It's so heavy. But gosh, man, to hang on to it, you've got to have some killer grips. Whereas a lot of times in jiu-jitsu, the gis are much softer and that kind of thing. So anytime I get a gi, if it's like something I want to wear in competition, it's going to be on more of the elite, maybe somewhat heavier side, or at least have a gi weave that's a little bit sort of rougher on the hands. So that's me. And Bodhi Tree says heavy gis are too hot. You get used to it, you know? You get used to a hot gi. I mean, just like when the first time I came into jiu-jitsu, I wore a gi and I was like, this thing is so hot. I hate this gi. But you get used to it. You know, your body adjusts. It's just like when you go into a hot yoga room. You know, go into a hot yoga room and friggin', you know, the room kills you. You get used to it though.
All right.
What is your best guard for MMA? I personally am a fan of rubber guard or the Williams guard. Vincent MMA, which one is my favorite? I don't know that I have I don't want to say best. See, best is a weird thing when you're talking about like styles, right? Because what's best for you may not be the best for me because we have two different body types, right? So I won't say best, but I think that anytime you're talking about guard, one of the sort of the prerequisites that you're going to have or going to have for a guard in MMA is that it has to be incredibly effective at controlling distance. Because, you know, for instance, if you play in jiu-jitsu, a lot of times the guards that we play, I literally think I have if you guys are interested in some tips transitioning from jiu-jitsu to MMA, there's a video releasing at 5 o'clock on the channel, check that video. But one of the things that is important with it is that if you think about a lot of the positions in jiu-jitsu, we're like right within arm's reach, right? So I can reach out and touch you. I can reach out and grab you. That's a really bad thing for a fight because I can elbow you or punch you. So in a situation where we're talking about a fight, you need to either be really, really close or you got to be really far away. And so to control that distance is really, really important for any grappling position. And it's going to be an absolute necessity for any guard position that you get into. You're going to have to be able to control the distance. And if you can't do that adequately, it's not going to be a good guard for MMA.
So this is a question you've probably answered a number of times. It's from
Net. He's from Sweden. Net.
Ah, all right. Yeah, so Chewy, I cannot afford a gi or training. I'm 14 and my family just spends their money on food, rent, etc. What can I do to train like a fighter? At home, I want to start an MMA crew.
Man, you know what, dude? Again, this is, everybody's got their own thing. So I'll tell you where it came from with me. So when, and again, everybody's got different situations, and so I don't want to discount that. But, you know, I grew up, you know, it sounds like you're kind of like I was, didn't have a whole lot of resources available to you, right? Because I grew up and I lived at home with my mom. We had two sisters, 3 kids, single mom, and she's working a ton. I used to, from a very young age, I had to like cook dinner for the kids and stuff like that, and cook dinner first when mom was at work and stuff. And, you know, it was, I didn't think anything of it, just normal for me, you know, but I had like odd jobs like all the time. Like I'd go around to neighbors and rake leaves, cut grass, like anything I could. I would just figure out stuff that I could do for people to make a couple bucks. And when I got older, I got my first job when I was like 14. I told them I was like 15, but I'm 14. And I started bussing tables. You know, I just started bussing tables at a restaurant. Now I took all that money and I used to put it into things that I wanted to buy. So for instance, I bought a weight set in my basement. I went in, they used to have these things, I don't know if they still have them, they used to have these things called Thrifty Nickels. It was like some sort of like classified ads where you could just sell your stuff. And so I went out and I was working at this job, saving up my money from that stuff, and I wanted to fight MMA or wanted to train for MMA and martial arts and stuff, but I didn't really know where to go. But I just was like, I'm gonna get in shape. So I bought a weight set in my basement. I had a heavy bag that I bought all this stuff on my own back then from the jobs that I had been working. And then, you know, when eventually I found a jiu-jitsu gym later on, which way back in the day was really difficult to do, because there was like, it wasn't like now where there's all these like directories and Google's really good at finding stuff. Back in the day, man, like back in my day when jiu-jitsu, when we would have to walk to jiu-jitsu class barefoot 17 miles, you know, right. Back then it was really hard to find stuff. So I found this guy that was teaching jiu-jitsu classes in a powerhouse gym, you know, out in the other end of town. And tell you this, I didn't even have a car at the time because, again, I'm broke. I don't have a car. You think I got money for a car? I didn't have any money for a car. So what I did is I found my buddy who had a car. And so I was making money bussing tables. I paid for his membership. I paid for my membership. And the sort of exchange was if he'll drive, right? So then he drove. And then he had to get a job change. So this was after about a month or so of training. So then for like 4 or 5 months, I'm not able to train. It's a bummer. So I saved up a little bit more money, bought mats in my house. And so he actually lived with me at the time, and we would train down in the basement. We'd watch instructional videos that I bought and play on the mats. And eventually when he got his job change, we went back to training. And again, I paid for his membership. And so again, I'm just telling you this because whenever you want to do something, and this is just life in general, bro, whenever you want to do something, especially if it's something like that's going to change you, something that's really going to be, it's going to be this adventure to be had, expect difficulties, expect things to get in your way, right? Things are going to get in your way. Don't expect it to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And so what I would say is, but if you want to make it happen, you will find a way to make it happen. So you could start with your buddies and you guys could watch YouTube videos and kind of wrestle around. And then you could find a way to go get a job and then save up a little bit of money and talk to coaches. Hell, you could go talk to the coaches and say, listen, man, I really, really, really want to train there. Can I mop mats? Can I take out trash? Can I do something for you? Right? There's always a way if you want there to be. Again, if you just kind of go, I don't have any money and screw it. Again, whatever. But if you want to do it, if you have the desire to do it, like you want, like breathing, like drinking water or something, right? If it's such a desire that you can't get it out of your head, don't give up on that, man. Like find a way, whether that's training at your house. I mean, hell, dude, me and my buddies, when we started, before I even found a jiu-jitsu gym, we were just beating each other up on the carpet. Like we were just like wrestling around in the basement on like concrete with a carpet on top of it. And we were just like watching videos and trying to piece together moves. There was no YouTube, there was no instructionals. It was just like we'd watch a fight and we'd see someone use a move and we'd try to do it. And we all wrestled, so we kind of had a little bit of an idea. And again, but eventually I had a job. So again, you can try to look for a job or see what you can do for money and make a little extra money, or you could talk to the coach, message him up. You don't know. It can't hurt to ask. He may say, or he or she may say no. They may be like, look, we don't need the help, whatever, but you never know, dude. It might be like, you know what? I appreciate this young person taking forth that effort, putting the best foot forward, and man, just like throw a Hail Mary out there, ask him, send him an email, send him a message, check. You never know until you ask. And so, you know, again, be creative, figure a way out. Because again, nothing in your life is going to come easy, and this is just one of those things where it's giving you a chance.
I mean, you've done that many times at the gym. You've given people opportunities to, to clean.
Got a guy doing it right now.
Front end work, do some stuff, help you out, whatever. Just be willing. Most coaches are going to work with you. They want you there. Like, why not? Like, if that's something you're passionate about. Most jiu-jitsu coaches are here to build you up. You're not doing this because you hate it. You're doing it because you love it, and the students make you who you are. They make your gym grow and make it flourish. So, like, I think that if you don't, want to support, I mean, there's not always opportunity to do
there's
that.
Not.
But,
you can't always
most of the time they'll find something.
Yeah.
There's a way to help out.
Here's the thing: if you do go that route and they agree and they say, you know what, I see a young guy, I see a little bit of myself in this dude. I'm gonna help you out. They're putting their neck out there for you a bit. Do not take that for granted. That is your word you're giving them. Super, super important, because I've had so many people over the years where they said, yeah, man, I'll do this, and then they don't come through.
Right.
And it sucks, man. Again, I choose not to be jaded from it, because I could be, because it's happened so many times. More often than not, when I give someone that opportunity that we're talking about, more often than not, they screw me over. Like, you know what I mean? Which sucks, because I'm like, dude, I'm trying to help you out. You said you need help. I'm trying to help you. But then they'll do something where they don't hold their end of the bargain, and I'm like, you didn't hold your word. Your word, your integrity, so important. I mean, it's everything. And so I would make sure that if you go that route of if anyone ever does that, if you try to go that route of asking someone for, hey, let me mop mats, let me clean, let me help you out, whatever, in exchange for this, dude, you better be on it. You better treat that like it's your job,
right?
And don't treat it as I'll get around to it. You treat it as your job, because that also has to do with the relationship that you're building with that person. And again, your integrity and your word is paramount to all that stuff, so super, super important.
Chewy, here's John Doe. John Doe asks,
John Doe,
what are you guys up to on the daily since everything is closed?
I still go to the gym to do videos for you guys. Right now on the channel, I'm posting 5 videos a week, Monday through Friday. I guess there are going to be more videos since we're doing this one, but at least 5, Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just letting you guys know. But as far as stuff I'm doing, I'm still lifting a little bit, and then I'm reading a ton. I've had all these books on the queue, so I've been just chewing through a bunch of books. And then at nighttime I have a little bit more wiggle room as far as like what I do, and so I've been stretching for about at least an hour and a half every night.
Right.
And man, if I could tell some of you guys to do something that most people don't do, I would encourage you to stretch. It's something that, like, until I've had this time where I'm just doing stretching, like I've been stretching for a few weeks now consistently every night. I'm like, man, I wish I was doing this like 20 years ago, because like everything in my body feels so much better. Like all the problem areas, my knees aren't aching. My squat depth's getting better when I'm lifting weights. I feel better range of motion with my movements, less clicking and popping and stuff, and my body feels great. And again, it was doing this before we got the quarantine, right? Because I started stretching every night, and I was doing jiu-jitsu. It was making a big difference, and I always stretch for a little bit, but I really been trying to stretch like for a long period of time. And then this last 2 weeks, man, I've been stretching like crazy, and it's making a big difference. And so I definitely would encourage people to do that. And again, I included a free resource. In that resource, there's some tips on stretching, and there's some stretching videos in there, and you can check that out. There's a link in the community tab. You guys can look that up, and then I'll have the link there. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. What have you been up to, Eugene?
I've been recording, actually, coming in. I'm trying to make it like a job. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to come in, and I'm recording actually a course for the hips, just to work on hip mobility, hip strength, again, flexibility. I think the hips are they're not as commonly injured in jiu-jitsu per se, but they are the link to a lot of injuries in jiu-jitsu.
Because
back pain,
it gets so darn tight.
Yeah,
Damn,
back pain,
so
isn't a correlation to hip mobility, hip strength, and then knees as well. Think about if you're playing leg locks and you don't have that hip mobility, you don't have internal rotation, or you can't move your hip in a certain way, that stress is going to go through your knee. That's just the logical thing. That's the breaking. That's where the weakest link is. Your hip has that rotation, has that movement. So the hips are so crucial. I mean, just for everything. Guard retention, finishing a submission like a triangle choke. You want to tire a triangle choke? You better get improved hip mobility. I mean, it's crucial. retaining guard, S-mount, rubber guard. I mean, whatever. I mean, it's so important. And healthier hips are going to, be very important in a healthier, joints surrounding it. So I've been doing that, hanging out with my kids, man, really just trying to be creative and playing with them, really, because I've been so busy, being able to just kind of connect with them a little more and, hang out with my wife. So that's been fun. It's been so hard to feel like you're not wasting your time. And I don't want to do it. I'm not doing it out of panic. I'm doing it just because I have the opportunity. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been a unique break for me from different things, and maybe even an opportunity to kind of reinvent myself when I return to the mats. Upgrade my perspective, maybe. Adjust it, or.
How do you mean upgrade it? I've heard people say, "I'm gonna upgrade." What do you mean upgrade?
Be more deliberate. Have fun. Be more deliberate with my drilling. Be more attentive with the techniques. Just fine tune. Just fine tune, because it's I could always drill a little bit. We like to have fun on the mats. We always do. But just try to be a little bit more focused when I'm on the mats. Just be a little more focused. I think it's just a good reminder.
Sure.
Not nothing really crazy, but and also look at some techniques like we talked about. Look at some positions that maybe I haven't got a chance to delve into. Focus on those a little, research them and study them a little bit and just learn them. And then, once we've been on the mats for a while, I think that transition from learning visually to actually kinesthetically moving through is a little bit smoother because we've got that muscle memory.
Yeah, you get that feedback.
So I think studying is important. You had some great tips on how to study, which I think is, because you can waste your time studying.
Yeah, you can. I think anytime, if you just kind of, I think people sometimes don't value what's going on in the subconscious.
Oh,
because a lot of times, for instance, when you're training, you have these aha moments.
Yeah.
Right? These points where you just get better and you can't really explain what the hell happened. And that has to do with the unconscious. It has to do with the subconscious stuff. The stuff that's not going on up here, A lot of times I've been playing chess kind of hard, recently with one of the guys that works at the gym with me and doing different stuff, and I'm starting to open up different ways. I'm starting to do different tactics that I've been studying it and watching videos, but they're starting to come forward, and I can't tell you what it is. It's that unconscious sort of recognition, right?
Yeah.
And it happens a lot of times, even if you just watch video, you're unconsciously absorbing this information. You're seeing people work from positions and stuff like that. So a lot of times we're always what am I getting from this, right? But a lot of times if you're just watching matches and just at your leisure and you're enjoying them, if you're watching instructionals, if you're just doing this stuff at your leisure, a lot of times that stuff's sort of absorbing in a way that you don't necessarily understand. But then all of a sudden you get these ideas or these things pop up when you're training. So I think that a lot of times just immersing yourself in information is a good thing for the long term. Let's see. We got a question from Paul Goodnitz. I'm glad you said. Paul, I'm really glad you actually said how to say your name, because I would have butchered it. It says starter books for stoicism. All my coaches and you coincidentally quote Stoics. Also fave 3 grapplers and MMA fighter. Oh man, I got all kinds of stuff here. So 3 for Stoic books. I'll tell you the ones that I got into. The first, as far as Stoic books, I started off with Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. That's a really good one. I think what's interesting about that book, by the way, is because Marcus Aurelius never made that book to try to make it some sort of major work of art or work of information for Stoicism. That was his book. That was his thoughts, right? Meditation translates to thoughts. It was his thoughts about how he should live. He's reminding himself, when you read it, he's reminding himself, do these things, act this way, behave this way, live this way. And that was a big practice of Stoics, right? Was to journal constantly, remind yourself. And again, going back to Jiu-jitsu, repetition. It's reminding yourself every day, how do you want to live? How do you want to go about this thing? It's your choice. You get to choose how you go out there. You'll hear people say all the time, that's just the way I am. You don't have to be that way. You can take an active role in this damn thing, right? That's like going into the jiu-jitsu, thing and being like, you got choked with a triangle 20 times because you kept leaving your arm out. Just how I roll. No, you can change that. And so these Stoics would actively write about those things. You know, and again, that was a practice, and that's a practice that I do. A lot of times I'll write things that I want to go do. Like here's a great example. From these videos, sometimes I have a tendency to talk too damn much. I mean, I'm a talkative person anyway, but sometimes like I get out of this thing where, because I'm doing these videos, helping people with their questions or ideas or things like that, I forget that I'm supposed to listen when other people talk. And I remember I was getting a little bit away from myself. And so, you know, I would write in my journal, remember when people are talking, be 100% listening. Just listen. Don't say anything. Just listen and be an attentive listener. You know, because it's something I wanted to be. I wanted to be a better listener. So it's something I would write about every day until it stuck, until I noticed that I was doing what else I wanted to do. So meditations, a really good one. Really good one to start with. Letters from a Stoic, from Seneca, another good one. When it comes to that from Seneca, one of the things I think it's important to read, this is important when you understand a lot of different people that have written books that are even really popular and stuff. Understand that a lot of times these guys are shooting for an ideal, right? Like Seneca, when you read about him, he was an incredibly wealthy person in Rome, but he was sort of talking about, you know, not being worried about money and all this other stuff, even though he was worried about those things. So again, just because, remember that the messenger, right? And we're all messengers. I'm a messenger, right? We're flawed. Everyone's flawed. We're all flawed human beings. But a lot of times the message can still be good. And so when you read Seneca's writing, it was a really good, there's a lot of good messages on there. One of the ones that I really love, it's one of my favorite letters that he had. I can't remember the number offhand, but he's talking about slaves. Because he said that, you know, people will say like, because he was talking about Romans mistreating their slaves. Mm-hmm. And he would say, you know, that's just a slave, right? And they would just like, you know, make fun of him and sort of, you know, give this person such a nasty way to go. But then he would say, well, you're a slave too. You're a slave to your mistress. You're a slave to money. You're a slave to whatever it is, your thoughts. You're all slaves. We're all slaves, right? Every one of us is a slave to something, to someone, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to realize that, like, what are you a slave to? So yeah, you know, he was big about that. And when you read that, you're like, oh man, like, what are you a slave to? What are your thoughts? Everything else. Anyway, getting off topic here. So that's a really good one. You know, I just always share that about Seneca because as you start to read these books and things like that, you start to realize there's sort of a disconnect. And then after that, I got into Epictetus and those guys. And again, I would encourage anyone to get into Stoic philosophy. I think it's a very practical form of philosophy. And I would also encourage you guys, I talk about this all the time, but journal. I think journaling is a really important practice. All the most badass dudes in history all journaled. And, you know, again, it's a really important process, at least in my life, for figuring out how I work. And so it's been useful. So with that said, Paul, Mr. Goodnitz, 3 best grapplers, or 3 favorite grapplers. Man, that's a hard decision, bro. Off the top of my head, I really, God, I can't choose 3, man. I've been big fans. I'm just going to name some that I'm a big fan of. Marcelo Garcia, Andre Galvao, Bernardo Faria, Rodolfo Vieira, Sean Hammonds. He's one of I've learned a lot from that dude. When I used to go to tournaments, my coach now, when I was going to tournaments, he was like kind of, you know, coming into his own as a grappler. And I was like watching him go to these tournaments and wreck people. Used to wreck me when I was training with him. You know, there's so many different grapplers, and you like them for different reasons, you know. I tend to like most of the heavier grapplers because I look at their games and I can relate to them a little bit better, whereas if like I watch a guy who's like flipping upside down on his neck, it just doesn't jive with me. You know, Salo's another good one. Shanji's another good one. Lovato. Like, I mean, dude, it's hard to say favorite grapplers because I like so many of them. It's just like, and you like them for different reasons because each one of them is a different style, you know, and so you like them for different reasons. So, and I'm such a geek that I study people, so I'm like, I don't have a favorite one. It's hard to say. But and then as far as favorite 3 MMA fighters, man, I'll be honest with you. As I've gotten older, I like watching MMA, but like since they've cranked up the productions and there's like a fight every other week or whatever, I don't really watch as much fighting. Plus, they changed the times to be later, and I literally cannot stay up till 2 a.m. to watch these fights anymore. You know, so it's like I don't want to go to sleep that late, so I don't watch many of the fights anymore. I'll watch the replays and stuff here and there, but I just can't stay up that late. But as far as favorite fighters, man, I was a big fan of Crow Cop back in the day. I freaking loved Crow Cop. He was a monster. I remember when I was a kid, I used to love watching Mark Kerr because he was a big wrestler. Yeah. Him and Mark Coleman, those big wrestler dudes.
It's one of the best documentaries, man.
Dan Henderson, he was another one I used to love watching because he was just a gamer. He'd go out there and ready to like knock someone's head off. I mean, man, like Damian Maia. God, I love watching that guy do jiu-jitsu in an MMA standpoint. God, he's so good at it. Like, I mean, there's just too many. Again, it's just one of those things where I'm too much in it to have favorites. Right, I'm not like a casual fan. I'm really into it. So
you got
like
the old school, like the older guys, like the first or second generation guys, kind of more. You're probably talking about.
I'm one generation behind. Like the new guys, I don't really watch many of those. But like the generation behind, like Damian Maia, he's still
he's still relevant.
He's still there. And then there's even guys like obviously like there's other guys that I like watching. But I'm about a generation behind probably with MMA just because it's so frequent that I have a little bit of trouble. So
yeah, I was a big Chuck Liddell fan. Chuck and Randy, those were some of my favorites. Fedor was awesome. So just didn't look like any kind of athlete at all, and the Pride days were so incredible too. Just to watch the Pride days.
Yeah. I mean, what's really cool is if you look at Fedor was a beast, dude. Like if you look at some of his younger pictures, that dude was like he was nasty. When I knew Fedor was like legit, I watched his fight with Heath Herring. So he was one of his at the time, because I'm going back to like when I was super into MMA and I was like a super fanboy. This is even before I trained. When he fought Heath Herring on SureDog's like rankings, right, which were used to be kind of the rankings because SureDog was like the main website for all this stuff. He was ranked number 10. Fedor was, right, and then he fought Heath Herring. And I remember like watching the fight, and then later on I downloaded the fight again to watch, and his ground and pound was disgusting, right? Like he threw a punch, and I remember having it in like ultra slow motion on my computer. And like one frame was he was standing over top of a guard with his hand over his head, and then the second frame was that his hand was like punching Heath Herring in the face, and that was it. Ended the fight because Heath Herring rolled over, and that was it. Because he I think it probably broke his orbital.
Just the speed of his
so fast, and then it wasn't too long after that he fought Little Nog. Or not Little Nog, but Big Nog. He fought Big Nog. And, dude, his ground and pound in that fight, I've still never to this day seen someone do that. Because he wasn't just, like, sitting there punching. He was jumping. I mean, he literally was jumping in the air, throwing punches. And it was – if you guys want to see, like, a really amazing fight as far as ground and pound and submission defense, go watch the fight with Fedor and Nogueira back in the day, because at the time Nogueira had submitted Mark Coleman and all these other guys to win. Then he went against Bob Sapp and had a brutal fight with Bob Sapp. Ends up beating Bob Sapp with an armbar after getting pile drived on the mat.
Right.
Little Nog looked unstoppable, right? And then Fedor was the next fight afterwards. And when Fedor beat him, it was like you were watching him fight out of all these submissions, and the way that Fedor was fighting was just nobody had ever seen ground and pound like that before, at least not to my knowledge. And I was watching it like, holy crap, this is new.
He was interesting. I just really enjoyed watching him fight, just because it's kind of unconventional. His punches were kind of unconventional, where he threw him.
That loopy,
like very kind of almost like threw him from his hip, kind of.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, all your punches are really going to come from your hip, but he would have this weird like.
Well, what I'm saying, when he would have his hands would be down, kind of. His hands would be kind of down his hip when he was throwing.
He would come at these weird angles.
Yeah.
Let's see. We had a.
Chewy, this is a question you got a lot. Real quick, gi versus no gi. Which one do you like better? We can answer that.
I like both, but if I had to choose one, I like no gi better. Just because it's probably because I wrestled first.
Yeah.
I just like that feeling of not being able to be held down by grips and stuff. I like no gi better.
Is there one you feel you're better at?
No gi.
No gi.
I think I'm better at no gi. I'm good at gi too, but I think if you were gonna like say what I'm better at at no gi. I think. Yeah. I've done more in competitions with no gi. And when I roll with people, I tend to do better no-gi than I do gi.
Do you think it's because of your like style, passing style,
my style? I'm impatient. I like to move. You know what I mean? I like to move, and so I like to push the pace. And in the gi, sometimes people can hang on to you, and they can make that really difficult to do.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Let's see here. Brandon Blue. He says, "I just hope this pandemic makes Chewy take up playing Call of Duty. That way, I have something I might be able to beat him at." So I don't really play video games, Brandon, because I get too much into them. But when I played those type of games, I was a Battlefield fan. And the reason I played Battlefield was because I liked the teamwork aspect of it, where that you kind of had to work together. Because Call of Duty was always like just at least back when I played, it was like a melee. Just everybody's shooting each other and stuff. Whereas Battlefield, me and a few of my buddies would play together. I met them online.
First-person shooter?
Yeah, first-person shooter. We would play together, and I remember we would each be the different classes, and we would work together. I remember one of them could really fly the helicopter really well in one of the battles, and so he would get up, and we would drop out, and we would go take the flag and he'd come and scoop us up. And I like that element of teamwork that was at work there, because I always found that fun. And then besides that, as far as gaming goes, the only games I really got into, to be honest with you, I played a lot of Battlefield. I played a ton of Morrowind and Oblivion, Elder Scrolls games. I played Skyrim for a day, and I shut that sucker off. I wasted like 10 hours. I was like, I'm not doing this again. I already did it in those other two. And especially at the time I was like the head instructor, I was like, I got too much stuff to do, man. I can't be playing these games. And then when I was a young kid, I played Ultima Online. That was like the first major MMO. That was like the first big like online game that I played. And when I was a young like teenager, I played the hell out of that game a bunch. It was like the first game, like, you know, like World of Warcraft and all that stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It was the game that made that. It was the first game that like blew up and had this basically this online
virtual world kind of thing.
Yeah, because I mean there were games that were like that, but not as big at that time. That was the first one that was like huge.
Yeah,
you know, so
it's interesting.
But I don't game much anymore.
There's one of my favorite games. It's probably the only game I'll play right now. I picked up PlayStation a little bit. I'm playing just a little bit here and there, but I gotta stop because it does take up too much time.
Dude, they're so much fun. Oh, I forgot. I played a ton of StarCraft and StarCraft 2. I was when I was playing StarCraft 2, I made it to the Diamond League. So it means I was playing like I was playing Koreans and stuff, and they were tough.
So I've never done online gaming.
Oh yeah.
I had a UFC, the first UFC. And then I had like a week, I think it was like maybe spring break or something from college. And I had a week free online, and I played like literally every day for like 8 hours. And I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah,
this is like, because you get like, you get ranked, and you get like a record. And I was like, this is too much.
I mean, dude, they make it, this is why like, you know, Taekwondo places that like have or, you know, even not, I don't want to call out Taekwondo, like just any martial art type of program where they've got like 70,000 belts and awards, like they keep you going.
Yeah.
And they keep you going, right? And that's the whole thing. So like when you're playing like PlayStation and stuff, or, you know, different games, it's like, here's the carrot, right? You just got your new gun, you just got your new weapon, you just got some whatever, you just got an achievement point. They're keeping you going, you know?
Yeah. I would have to say there's one game I'm excited for, and it's The Last of Us 2. It's a really cool. It's like a survival game. It's been voted like one of the best games of all time. It's on PlayStation. It's incredible. But that'll be it.
Let's see here. Got one from MB62011. It says, Chewy, love the videos on YouTube. Helped me out a lot on and off the mats. Thank you. You're welcome, brother. He says, bonus question. Hodger Gracie versus Gordon Ryan. Who wins? Man, I don't know. Like, I mean, you know,
in their primes,
you know, I don't know. That's because, you know, the thing about those guys, both of them guys is that they're both incredibly, when you watch them in their things, dominant. And I don't know who would win that. Like, I mean, you know, part of me maybe thinks maybe Hodger, you know. But I don't know. Like, it's because it's like, again, because you're talking about a theoretical situation that like can't happen, and styles are such a big thing, because you could, like, you know, grappler A and grappler B and grappler C, just because one beats the other doesn't mean the other one can beat the other. Does it make sense? Like, just because grappler A beat grappler B and grappler B beat grappler C doesn't mean that it's going to work that way, right? Because I beat them, you can beat them. It's a different situation. And so I don't like to make those things where, this guy would win, you know, like, I mean, because what do you base it off of, you know? And I don't know.
I think rule set's very important. I think Hodger was probably significantly better in the gi. So what I would say is that if it's gi, it would be Hodger. If it's no gi, I think you give Gordon the advantage.
Okay. And and honestly, I'll say this. I think that, like, as far as like rule set gi or no gi, well, maybe that makes a difference. But as far as like the rule set and far as points and everything else, I don't think that either one of those guys are really, because there's some people that you watch and like it doesn't matter what the rule set is, they play the game, they play the rule set, right? So for instance, if it's an IBJJF, they'll get 2 points and they'll sit. If it's the EBI, they'll do nothing for 10 minutes, and then in the rounds, they'll come alive in the overtime rounds. Right. You know, there's guys that play that style. Then there's other guys that are gamers. They always go for the finish. They're always attacking. They're always going for something. It doesn't matter if it's a point-based tournament, submission only, whatever. They'll go for it. And I think that both Hodger and Gordon are both, to me, both of those individuals fall under that umbrella of being like guys that go for it. Like, I mean, like both of them have a really high amount of submissions. You know, I mean,
like percentage of submissions.
Yeah, I mean,
like in their matches, right?
They finish matches. They're not just playing it safe, and so both of those guys have a really high submission rate. So I think that you could put those guys in either one if they did compete and put them into either one, and they'd both go for it. You know,
I got to see Hodger go against. It was in 2015. I went to like the big UFC. I went to see Conor McGregor fight or something. But they had like the big UFC Expo, and they had an IBJJF. The Las Vegas Open, I think, at the time. And who's the guy with the green hair? Oh, God, he's got green hair. I can't think of his name now. It's escaping me. But, it was awesome.
Big guy, like, little guy?
Big guy.
Oh, Comprito?
Yeah, yes,
Comprito.
Yeah, yeah, he beat the brakes off of him, man. Like, mounted him and choked him. It was just
Comprito,
so good.
Comprito was a legend back in the day, man. He's still obviously a legend, but he was a hell of a competitor in his heyday. You know what I mean? By that time, he was a bit older.
So fanboy status, he was sitting there by himself. Hodger was sitting there by himself on the mat, like before. And I was like, shit, I'm going. I took the opportunity to take a picture, which is probably not the best idea because he's probably in the zone. So now thinking back, I'm like, but I couldn't pass it up. He's one of the greats.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the...
He was super nice. He took a picture and everything. He was really cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
Nice.
Didn't say much.
I came up to him at the New York Open back in 2010, and he wasn't competing. He was just there.
Yeah.
And I saw him, and I was like, oh, my God. It's
How
crazy.
can you not walk up to that dude?
I just went up to him and said, hey, man, I just want to say that you're freaking awesome, and I love your matches, right? Because I didn't really want a picture with him. I just wanted to be like, dude, you're awesome.
That's what you thought you said, but really you just drooled the whole time and stared at him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I was a young brown belt at the time too.
Yeah, dude. God, I mean, it's like how the funny thing about jiu-jitsu is we have all these, like, a lot of us have like jiu-jitsu. I mean, I have like some kind of idols, people I really look up to, and just when you meet them, or they're accessible, you know. Sometimes we'll get people on the podcast and we're like, oh shit, this person's gonna come on and talk to us. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Leaf Erickson says, personal question: how did you break your front tooth? I've got a really good video on it. If you go on, because I feel like I did it justice. If you want to see how I broke this tooth after this stream is done, get on the channel and put in chipped tooth Chewjitsu. You'll find a video with me in a green shirt, and I'll be answering questions. Watch that video, and I will tell you how I chipped this darn tooth.
All right. So here's I think this is Fried Stew is asking this question. I have an issue when I'm rolling. I'm not sure how hard people are going, so I can never really know how hard I should go. So I don't really know how good I am. I find myself tapping, but I'm also not trying.
How long you been training? What is his name? Fried what?
Fried Stew.
Fried Stew. How long you been training, brother? Because it can be a good question, but how long you been training? I can't answer that question unless I know how long you've been training.
Watch the video of you and JT rolling. You know, you guys weren't going. You know, you're feeling each other out. You're getting a similar pace. I don't think he was going 100%, and you weren't either.
Wasn't. No, I mean
we weren't either. And it was more of a friendly kind of like really skilled. Really you guys were kind of using your skills back and forth.
So when JT and I rolled, and someone else said mentioned that said something I wanted to give you a shout out to. I forgot who just mentioned that just a minute ago. Let's see if I can find it real fast. Here it goes. Training Crocodile was talking about. Said, "Hey man, thank you so much for the video that you posted and how open I was about it." So when I was rolling with JT, we both started. I'm actually breaking down those rolls for the people in the vault. So nice. I'm gonna like narrate those and break those down, because it's 25 minutes of rolling. So when we started the match off, we started off very slow. Right, just kind of moving around, flopping around, whatever, back and forth, and then we began both to pick it up. And as a black belt, you start to know the where you're at. And I probably got to, I think, somewhere at different points in time, somewhere between 70 to 80%. So if you're thinking about being in the gym, that's kind of a weight, a good working weight. You can use it, but you're not like your form's not suffering, and you're not going just squeezing, right? But it's enough weight that becomes tough, right? After so many reps, becomes tough. So when I was rolling with JT, I definitely know he wasn't going as hard as me because I was working harder to do my stuff against him. And you could look on his face. He was working a little bit. He was still sweating, but you could definitely tell that he was in complete control of the situation. You know, and I was able to get a few things, you know, whatever. But again, we were definitely not playing 100%.
Was he on top the whole time?
No, we played both. You know,
you got on top a little
bit.
Yeah,
I would get on top and stuff, and he would pull guard, or like I think I got like one sweep out of the whole time, which was just I muscled up a little bit of energy and came up, you know. But again, he was playing around, so like we weren't really going 100%. I didn't have my snarling, biting, trying to go after him, because again, he's a visitor, man, and I'm not trying to prove anything. I just want to feel the skill. But at the same time, my technique was not at the level of his, because he was able to shut all that stuff down with beautiful finesse, and I was trying to do different stuff, and simply I wasn't able to do it, you know. And so
you were using more effort.
So I was probably going 70-80%. He was probably somewhere in like the 40 to maybe 60%. Okay. Maybe less than that, I don't know, but that's what I would guess. Like, you know, I'm going harder, and he's able to contain me and bust me up, but with going at a lighter speed, you know. But again, for me to go 100% with someone, it's either going to be a competition or it's got to be someone I really know. Because like when you're talking about going 100% at like black belt level is a way different animal than 100% for a white belt. 100% for a white belt, like a white belt's like someone who just got into weight training, right? If a person that just got into weight training, maybe they can max out at 185 on the bench. Like they can try to max out in every day if they wanted to. It's not gonna hurt them. But you try to be like, if you're like a champion powerlifter, you going to your max capacity like is potentially dangerous for your body, right? Because you're really, really strong. So for me, I don't like to go 100% because like, man, it really takes a toll on my body. Like when I go to competitions, I come out of those things beat up, even if things went great,
right?
You know, and also it's like you got to kind of, for me, it's almost like a dance partner, right? You know, if you've been dancing with a man or a woman, right, you don't start grabbing on them immediately, right? You kind of like
work your way in.
You work your way in. You feel the situation out, right? And so for that, like, I don't really go 100% with too many people unless I know that they're cool with that, right?
Right.
And so with JT, it's just a friendly role. Again, he shut me down, and he was in complete control. And his technique was friggin' amazing. Dude, he's such a cool guy too, by the way. Really, really nice guy. And man, I'll tell you this, he's a very gifted teacher as well. Like when you listen to the guy speak and teach, he has a very good way of describing positions and things like that, and very, very good. And I was going to say something, and I completely forgot. Oh, I was thinking of this. A lot of you guys watch some of the rolling videos, and everybody thinks I'm always flow rolling. Sometimes I am, but not all the time. See, this is the difference. Like it's almost like if you guys remember those old memes where it'd be like, this is what my friends think I do. This is what my family thinks I do. This is what I think I do. Here's what I actually do, right? Yeah. It's like that because just because it looks like I'm going slow doesn't mean I'm really going all that slow. I mean, I'm actually putting a lot of effort into a lot of those rolls and stuff. It looks different on camera than it feels, you know. And I don't have I'm not naturally like ultra explosive and quick. I'm strong as can be, but I'm not one of those dudes that's like super like really, really fast to see. But if you roll with me, you'll be like, God, he's all over the place for a big guy. It's a different thing. And so a lot of those rolls that you guys see, especially when I'm going with some of the bigger guys in the gym, I'm not flow rolling. We're going hard, but I'm not going 100%. Right. But I don't really want to go 100% very often because, again, it's damaging to the body. I'm going to keep it more of in a working range most of the time. It's like when you look at Andy Galpin posted a sort of a post the other day on Instagram talking about powerlifters. He was like, you know, most of these champion powerlifters live in their 70 to 80% range. Gotcha. That's where I live in training. I'm not trying to go 100% all the time where I'm going to hurt myself, hurt someone else. I'm going at a working pace. That this way I can get lots of rolls. I can mitigate injury. I can stay consistent, but I'm still getting enough. And, you know, when it comes to turning on the intensity, I've got plenty of that. I can turn the intensity and go 100% like that, you know, when it comes to competitions or whatever. But for most of my training, it's done at a working range.
Well, it's not also the difference is you are efficient in your movements. There's not a lot of wasteful, jerky movements. It's kind of smooth and efficient the whole way. And I think, you know, I compare it to like, I suck at golf. I'm terrible at golf. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
And if I'm golfing and I try to hit the damn ball, like I look like I'm straining.
Oh yeah.
But you watch these like high level golfers and it looks like they're hardly swinging hard. It's just because they know like they're efficient, their body's very fluid. They know exactly how to and so you just know you don't have there's no wasted, you know, movements. That's when you see black belts, it's like a dance more than it is like, you know, being in a mosh pit pushing each other around.
Oh, absolutely. No, I agree. And you're right, because it's like they know where they're going. The roadmap has been laid out through years of trial and error and you know, developing body sensitivity. Whereas like white belts, you like watch them, and I remember it, man. I remember as a white belt, again, you're in first gear, the engine's whining, and you're not really going very fast, and you're getting nowhere, but you're exhausted afterwards. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you always compare. You do a lot of comparisons to like a car. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the body is a car, and like think about the efficiency of like, you know, you're going like 65, 70 miles per hour. You get the better gas mileage out of it, right?
Yeah.
Versus like you going really slow or really fast redlining.
Right.
So that's just kind of, I think when you're more efficient, and then you can go with that 80%, maybe even 85 for a longer period of time, and your 80% is like somebody else's 95, 100.
Exactly.
Probably, you know
right.
what I mean?
Exactly. So that's like with JT, he's maybe at 50% or whatever, which is my
Exactly,
it's
yeah.
like my 80. You know, that kind of thing.
He's a hybrid, and you're a diesel.
Diesel.
I don't know. You got one, Chewy?
I'm looking right now.
Okay,
So we
I've got
a
one really fast.
Cool.
Maybe you can give me like 3 things.
All right.
I can't see the first. It's Ewan O'Reilly. Tips on getting better in competition after attending a few and keep losing. So maybe a few little tidbits, maybe a few little pieces, nuggets of info.
So, man, everybody has different starts in competition. What I would say is, I'll just kind of take you through like my first couple competitions. My first competition in wrestling, I got beaten. My first match, I got beaten like 20 seconds by a guy that was a junior. I was a sophomore. Smacked me down on the mat, and I just rolled over and died. I mean, it literally was. Like, I was so not used to the intensity. So we get out there, and I remember the match starts, and like the dude like clubs me over the back of the neck, and it just like sends like shudders down to my bones, and I fell down on my back, and he pinned me, you know, and I felt terrible. A couple days later, that same week, I won my first match against a guy, and during wrestling in high school, I got the nickname Tugboat because after that first match, I was wheezing so hard. I was wheezing so hard after this like 3-minute match that I had with this guy and won that my coach called me Tugboat. Now after that, I had a lot of mixed results. I lost more matches than I won when I was competing in wrestling. It slowly got better each year. By senior year, I was doing really well. So a lot of times there is a hiccup. There's kind of, and it depends on the person, but a lot of times for most people, there's a bit of a transition period where you are taking the person that you are on the mats when you're training, and then you're translating that to the person who you are on the mats during a competition. So the thing that I would say is it's going to take more experience. If it's what you want to do, if you really want to compete, then you need to keep competing, because if you're not competing, you're never going to figure it out. And then you also have to do self-assessment. You really have to figure out what are you doing, right? Like, because again, there's things that are probably missing. If we sat down, you and I, if we sat down and watched your videos, we'd be able to look, well, your takedowns are junk, or your guard pull was terrible, or we need to work on this. We've got to figure out what's going on there and what we can improve. And so what you need to do is you need to look at your game and figure out, like, where am I messing up? And then you need to think about, well, how can I fix that? Or for me, a lot of times I look at trends. Is there a particular type of thing that's happening to you over and over again? Did you gas out? Did you get caught in the same move multiple times? Like, what happened? What's the trend? Look for that. You know, and if it's a mental thing, then that's a completely different situation. You know, when we talk about mental problems, that's where you got to go do some deep digging, because you probably got some old energy pushed down in the subconscious that's lurking in there, that's making you feel awkward about certain things, or making you feel like insecure about something. You know, again, it's another story, but I would say that ultimately you have to compete more, and you've got to self-assess after those competitions. Those competitions are feedback. You as a white belt, dude, don't even worry about these competitions. These are just your testing grounds. It's feedback for your game. Now you need to figure out what you can do to improve. I'd also talk to your coach and say, like, hey, what do you think I could work on? That kind of stuff, but you have to do that. So it's like, I mean, that's the way it works, right? It's constant feedback that we're getting. But the thing about a competition is it stings a lot more to lose in a competition. And by the way, people say, oh, you don't lose, you learn. No, you lose. You definitely 100% lose. And it's the sting of the loss that makes you take assessment, right? This is why when we win, it feels good. When we lose, we learn, but we learn because we lost. Because it didn't feel good. Nobody likes losing. Nobody likes screwing something up. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's not like we have to eradicate losing. Losing is a beautiful thing, because it makes you like wake up and take notice of the situation to fix it, right? Because if you didn't lose, if you never lost, you'd think everything was great, right? But the fact that you lost, and because you're like, shit, I lost. Even when you're rolling, man, I was going to hit that technique and they screwed it up. Even like right now, I'm playing like chess with my videographer that's in the gym, right? We're playing chess, and again, when he beats me at something, I'm like, damn it, I was trying to set him up with this move, right? Again, I don't have a bad relationship with losing. I take it for what it is. It's feedback for me to learn from. I just got to self-assess, And again, that's something you learn from competing.
It means a lot more. First of all, the stakes are a little higher. So
when you compete,
when you compete,
because there are stakes on the line.
Yeah,
right.
And you feel.
Everybody's watching. You don't want to let anybody down. You put a lot of energy into it.
It's nerve-wracking.
It's nerve-wracking
like
so much.
You feel you pay closer attention to losing.
Sure.
Or to having a position not work or what have you. So I do think there's a lot of benefit to competing just from a learning perspective. Obviously, losing comes with it. Everybody's lost. The greatest have lost. It's just important. It's important. I think it's important to compete. It's part of jiu-jitsu, and some people may disagree with that. But I did want to say something. Israel Mandingo said hello from Seville, Spain. They said that he's learning English with you in your videos. So I thought it was kind of cool. So
cool.
That's really neat. I was like, that's really awesome that's people are learning. Chew, you're an international English teacher.
Man, you better not learn English from me. You'll start talking really fast. I notice that whenever I get excited in the videos, I start talking super fast.
But you get your point across.
I just get excited.
Get your point across.
Hassan does fitness asks, am I a fan of Eddie Bravo? Sure. Guy's really good at jiu-jitsu. I don't really care for all the conspiracy theory stuff, but as far as jiu-jitsu, he's really good. He's really good. He's got a good system that he's created. I mean, that's all.
Proof is in the pudding, man. Well, he's got a lot of guys that are very successful and very good.
Here's the thing. A lot of people, and this is, you don't want to be one of these people, by the way. It's a marketing ploy where people try to say this is the right way, this is the wrong way, right? When you do that, it's like political parties, right? People try to set up, hey, these guys are doing it wrong, these guys are doing it right. Don't be those people that fall into that trap. There is no wrong or right way. This is all, especially when we're talking about jiu-jitsu, we're talking about just ideas of doing things, right? There's no one way to do this thing. Because I'll get a lot of messages from people that say, hey, man, is Gracie Jiu-Jitsu the best or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Is 10th Planet better than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? None of it's better. It's all good for what it's for, right? Like if your sole focus is simply just doing self-defense techniques type stuff, like that's your focus, go that route, right? If you're wanting to just do nogi, go that route. If you're just wanting to do something else, go that route. Like, don't get caught up in a. And again, I don't think that you were doing that, Hassan. I'm just sort of saying this as sort of a aside. You don't want to fall into that trap of thinking one's the best of the other. Even arts, I've had messages from people say, hey, is judo better than jiu-jitsu? Is catch wrestling better than jiu-jitsu? Is jiu-jitsu better? I mean, they're good for what they were designed for, right? If you want to learn how to throw someone in the gi and slam them onto their back, judo's your place. If you want to learn how to, do some different stuff, go this way. I mean, again, each one of them has things to benefit from, and you want to be those people. You want to be one of those people that benefits from all these things. Again, you don't want the concrete rule. You don't want to get locked into that. Right? People like the idea of the 10 Commandments because it's concrete, and it takes away thinking. You don't have to think anymore. I got my 10 rules, right? It's like the diets, right? You got a carnivore diet, just eat meat. Oh, just eat meat. Cool, makes it easy for me. Hey, don't eat carbs anymore. We're going on the low carb diet, no carbs. Okay, cool. Vegetarian, just eat vegetables, right? Or you can go, hey, you can eat some of these foods in moderation, but you'll have to be more understanding of what they are. Oh, shit, I don't want to think about it, right? Like, I don't want to think about this stuff. So you don't want to be those people that gets locked in that because, again, that's not a good place for you to be, right? So if someone says, hey, this is the way to be, this whatever, just you do your own thing and you learn from all these different places and be an open-minded person. It's a much better place to be. You'll learn a lot more and your jiu-jitsu will be better because of it.
Ibrahim Ahmed asks, I'm a white belt, 0 stripes. Will it benefit me to drill techniques with my untrained brother during the coronavirus days?
Drill?
Coronavirus days. That's kind of an interesting way to put it.
The CV days. So he's wanting to drill techniques with his.
So yeah, untrained. His brother's untrained at all. He's a white belt, no stripes. So probably very.
Yeah, I mean, dude, go look up. Go watch. I've got some videos if you want to. Go look on YouTube. I've got drill videos. You'll get 5 to 7 drills for whatever. Go do those drill movements, right? Like, go do that stuff. Like, again, you can watch techniques. They don't have to be good at jiu-jitsu to have a body. Like, when you're drilling, all you need is someone that has a body that can stay there and be in a certain position for you to practice. You could absolutely get a lot of benefit from drilling on someone that doesn't have any jiu-jitsu.
Chewy, I know the answer to this one.
And
go ahead.
Brandon Ballou says, Chewy gets stripes from Sean Hammonds. Sean Hammonds gets stripes from Lloyd Irvin. I thought he was asking me. Yeah, I get stripes from Sean.
Was there ever a submission in particular that gave you a really hard time going against in your career, and how did you overcome it?
You've
shared this before. It's triangle.
Oh yeah, dude.
Triangle with Kyle.
I mean, triangle with everybody, bro. Triangle was my kryptonite for a long time. I would go into competitions and I would get caught in triangles. Now, going back to competition, back in the day, the Chewster used to be pretty insecure. You know, I didn't like losing. I had a very fragile ego, so when I lost, I thought I just sucked at life. I mean, I'm being honest with you, I would be wrecked from that kind of stuff. And so when I would get the videotapes of my matches, I didn't watch the losses because it made me feel bad. Because of that, I kept making the same mistakes. When I would compete, or excuse me, when I would train in the gym, I would not play from bad positions. I would simply want to work on what I was best at. Eventually, my coach got me over this, my coach Colin, because I went to a tournament, I got choked out by a triangle choke. Colin made me start in a triangle every day for a month. Every time we rolled, did not matter what we were working on that day, every time I rolled, I had to start in a triangle choke. And trust me, I almost went out plenty of times and tapped out plenty of times. But when I came out of that month, I was able to effectively be able to get out of triangle chokes. And then having training partners like Chad and Rich and some of these guys that had killer triangles, I was able to defend them. I remember there was a tournament that I went to several years ago where I got caught in a triangle, and as soon as the guy caught me in the triangle, I instantly have the thought that this isn't Chad's triangle, this isn't Rich's triangle, and I broke out of it and got out of it, passed his guard, and submitted him. So yeah, so I get triangle was one of my bad ones. Again, if you want to overcome a bad submission or a bad technique or a bad anything that really is a hole in your game, go to that position. Go there, right? The fear, wherever you have the fear, the anxiety, the trouble, go to that place because that's where the growth's going to happen.
Hypothetical question?
Hypothetical question. Oh, boy.
Which match between legends would you want to see? Jiu-jitsu legends would you want to see? That's from Vincent MMA Life.
Yeah,
I want to see, I'm going to tell you right now.
All right.
I want to see Galvao and Gordon Ryan in ADCC rules. That's what I want.
That'd be a fun one. It'd be fun to see, two of the monsters of ADCC go after it.
They're so good at their games, and it would be fun. Because I mean, Galvao, what are you going against? Felipe Pena.
Felipe Pena, yeah.
I mean, Pena's good, and he beat Gordon
the year before.
So it's
he beat him the year before or 2 years before in the Open. That's why he was, because if Gordon Ryan had won in the Open, he would have made it there, right?
Yeah. It's, I definitely would want to see that. Two very different styles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it would be interesting to see, that would be a good one. That's one that interests me because I really like both of those grapplers. Gordon Ryan's a monster, and so is Galvao, so I'd like to see that. Oh, earlier when I was talking about grapplers, I forgot to mention Gary Tonin. I love Gary Tonin.
Gary Tonin's badass.
I like his game. He's got great wrestling. He's got good top game, and he's got a great bottom game where he goes for leg locks and submissions all over the place. He's just one of those dudes where no matter what, it's going to be a fun match. So I really always like watching him. I forgot to mention that earlier.
Him and Paul Harris. Remember that match?
Paul Harris. Dude, his match with
Crone. I saw it.
Dude, that was a much better match.
Have you seen that? It's like a little documentary. Stuart Cooper did it. Crone was talking about that match. Because he was talking about him and he didn't know who what's his name was. Gary Tonin was, and he's like he went in there and then like they were I guess ADCC rules, and so he had his back. Crone had Gary's back, and then Gary had his back. And so he had to finish it with like 10 seconds. He finished the choke.
It was barely
incredible, but just like underestimate. He didn't know who he was, and then look at Gary. Look how good he is. Yeah. But if you want to learn, if you want to know a little bit more about Gary Tonin, listen to that podcast with Tom DeBlast. He kind of talks about why Gary Tonin is kind of so special and what makes him so good.
Got a question from Eve Burchall. Says, "What do you think about the trash talk? Do you think we should keep 100% respect, or do you think it's entertaining?" Think about it this way. So Eve, thanks for the question. So about the trash talk. I think most of it, I don't know, right? I think a lot of it is just, it's entertainment, right? Because it gets people to look. Here's the problem with our attention span. People they don't like, you can go that route. It's a lot more difficult, I think, if you want to promote yourself. Like, I don't trash talk because I don't like to. It's not something I don't have the stomach for it, and I don't pay attention to people enough to want to trash talk. But you could promote yourself a different way. right? But there's a lot more work involved there. But just simply like trash talking, it grabs people's attention. It's like pornography, right? Like it grabs your attention. You can't help. Oh shit! You look at it, right? So I think that a lot of times we see that more and more. It's like advertisements that put sex in them, right? It's like where they like, instead of coming up with a really good ad and a message, hey, there's a woman there that's half naked. You want to buy this, don't you? You know, and like shit works, unfortunately, right? So again, you know, it is what it is. You can look at it that way. So you know, I see, like, I'll give you an example. Like there was I've seen people say like I've seen messages before online where people are like, oh, I hate drama. I wish jiu-jitsu drama was out of it and blah, 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 you know, that kind of stuff. And then that BJJ steroids page was out, right? And it was like the guy was just taking pictures of grapplers and drawing needles all over him, you know? And I mean, it was just a complete troll job. It was like, I mean, golly, you know, like, and they had like the little lineup, who's using them, you know? And then, and
most of them are probably
right. And then I looked at it, and a couple of those dudes who were saying how much they hate drama were following. I was like, wait a second. I thought you guys hated drama. Why are you following something that's all about drama, you know? And so regardless, it makes things entertaining, you know? I mean, now, again, I don't know a lot of those people that are doing the trash talking, so I don't know if it's real or if it's just entertainment. I don't know. But definitely one side of it is that it's entertaining to people, regardless of whatever people think. Everybody kind of can't help but take a look. It's like Conor McGregor. Why does he get paid so much money? Because he's a really good trash talker. Why did Chael get so many people's eyeballs? He's a great speaker and a great trash talker. I mean, it is what it is, man. You know, like, so again, there's different ways to do it, but that's one way to do it. And a lot of the guys trash talk, and sometimes they do it pretty well, and it's entertaining. And you know, you can look at it's why pro wrestling was so popular for a long time, right? What was pro wrestling? A grown man's soap opera.
Yep.
You know, guys like big jacked up dudes that were, you know, friggin' slamming each other into the mat and then trash talking when they got out, right?
Yeah.
Got people's eyeballs. It is what it is, man. This kind of thing has been around for a long time. Muhammad Ali, right? We forget now because Muhammad Ali is this figure of our culture, right? Rightfully so, right? That has this place. We forget that at the time, a lot of people didn't like him.
Sure.
Because he talked mad trash, right? Talked all kinds of trash to people that he was fighting, all kinds of trash. A lot of people didn't like him. He was not well liked. Like, he was like half and half. You were either going to his matches because you absolutely hate him, or you going there because you loved him. One or the other, right? Which, I mean, isn't a bad place to be if you're trying to get people to watch you, right? They either love you or hate you, right? It's not a bad place to be. So again, I don't know. But I think that the trash talking is definitely definitely there, man. People definitely, you know, watch it, you know.
Here's the one caveat I'll add. I'm not a big fan of trash talking, but if you have a match, have a fight, afterwards you show respect.
Sure.
You give the person respect. If you're still an asshole kind of after, then you're probably just an asshole. But, you know, one thing that I think, do you remember when Miesha Tate fought Ronda Rousey and Ronda beat her, and then it's like she wouldn't shake her hand? I lost. Like, I was like, oh, you're just an ass. Like, you know, whatever. I don't know her personally, obviously. But, like, if you're like Conor McGregor loses gracefully, doesn't make excuses, and I respect that. You know, Chael would lose. Yeah. He would show his respect. Like, he'd say, you know, he'd make fun of Anderson about, you know, whatever. Right. And then he would be respectful after he lost.
Well, like, I was talking to JT. You know, JT is not a trash talker even a little bit, right? But I was talking to him about going against Wagner. Yeah. Because Wagner, like, he's trash talking you in the middle of the ring. He's like pushing your shoulder and shoving you constantly, and he's like basically talking trash to you the whole time. You know, which again, that kind of like, you know, that's, you got to be ready for that, right? So then I was asking, I was like, hey man, like, what is how is Wagner afterwards? He's like, dude, he goes, he was the nicest dude in the world. He comes up and gives me a hug, says, man, like you're so good, man. I was like, if I was gonna lose to someone, it was gonna be you, that kind of stuff, you know. And so again, it's just, you know, it's just the way that people do, and sometimes it's just a way to promote stuff. And I mean, there are people that obviously have legit beefs and stuff, but you know, again, I'll say it like this: it's not everybody's cup of tea, but if it gets more people to watch, whatever. Yeah.
Gordon, everybody kind of refers to Gordon Ryan about that. And from what I hear, that he's, you know, I don't know him personally at all, but what I hear is he's really, he may talk shit, but he's a nice dude. Yeah. He is, you know, he's nice to his fans. And I mean, it's fine. Yeah. If you're on his team, I guess. Man.
I mean, you know, and I mean, the thing is, he can back it up.
Yeah.
He's good.
He can. And until he can't, then that's when
he's really good.
That's when people stop talking. Nobody listens to you when you start losing.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, more pressure. You're raising the stakes, but that's how you get up there. All right. What you got, you?
I was looking at someone. Someone said something.
I've got one if you don't. From the Green Ninja.
I got one.
All right, go ahead.
It's a Connor says, talking about porn, how does it affect performance and recovery and training? Man, I don't know. I'll say this though, and I don't want to get off because again we might have kids watching stuff, right? But this is actually probably important for kids because we live in a world where this stuff is so accessible.
Yeah, Pornhub's like free or something, premium. They say. Did you hear about this?
Right.
They showed their statistics. I was like, it's just like the coronavirus curve,
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden like they're making out like bandits. I don't like to watch porn, and I don't do it very often because it ruins the stimulation that you have with your partners, and it can be legit addictions, dude. Like, and so it's like for me, it's like it's not. Like it's one of those things where you're like why? What's the point? Why do you have to watch it? And for me, it's like the relationships that you have, with your lady, hell of a lot better when you're not watching like this imaginary thing,
right?
Because that's not like, and that's another thing is it's like it's not real, right? Like when you read about what they like when you read about what porn stars have to do to get up. Like when they act like to get themselves to stay in the position, like they're like like some of them have to inject down there just to get the thing to stay up.
I mean, like they're filming. Like think about like you film a video, you have to like stop, take breaks, change camera angles.
Right.
Like I mean, I'm not saying you're filming that kind of stuff, but you know what I mean.
And then even like
it's
like
so unnatural.
Well, even like you look at like there was a really good post. It was like 89 porn stars or something before and after makeup, and you look at them and you're like, holy moly! Like I mean, like the makeup being used is like, I mean, like some of them were very pretty women, but then some of them was like you don't look like the same person even remotely. Right. So it's like, again, and the reason I say that is because, again, as a young guy, when I came up, I looked at it and was like, oh, like that's how you have sex.
That's what it is.
That's how sex is supposed to look like with a woman.
Sure.
Right. And then as I got older, I'm like, you realize like, no, it doesn't have to look like that. I mean, I guess it could if you wanted to. But, with the women where we've had the best, encounters in those situations, it wasn't like that. Right, and I did say that because again, if you get younger and they see this, they're doing studies on this more and more.
Right.
They have so many young people watching that stuff because again, bro, like that is something that we're not supposed to have. Just this endless treasure trove of just looking at naked people. Like that's not something that we should have. It's not something that our bodies adapted for. It's like fatty, sugary foods. We have such trouble with it because it doesn't exist in nature. Right? Like where do you have like you don't have like you don't have like ice cream and covered in hot fudge in nature, right? It doesn't exist. You don't have friggin' all potato chips. Those are engineered foods. This is engineered visual.
It hits a certain hits your brain at a certain level, like overly stimulates.
Right.
And so the point that you made that's really kind of powerful is that it's an addiction. Just like anything else, it's an addiction for people, and that's not something I ever thought. I've never even thought about that. I was like, what's the danger and all that shit? It's an addiction.
Yeah, it's like to me, it's like an addiction comes when you say I can't stop doing it. Like it's like don't do it for 30 days.
Yeah. Like
focus on your woman, right? If you I just challenge people, if you can't not watch it for 30 days, you got an addiction. You may not want to admit it to yourself because denial.
Jiu-jitsu,
but
we're all addicted to it.
Right.
Let's talk about jiu-jitsu. That's important.
We are all addicted. I made a joke on
itching.
I made a joke on Instagram, like you see people like rolling with their teddy bears, and one of my friends, she sent me a message and she goes, I was watching your gym tour video. She's like, and then I fell asleep, and then I had a dream that was in your gym training, and I was like, did we roll? She's like, no, we didn't get to roll. I was like, next time you dream, I was like, make sure you get
around on the mats.
Yeah, right.
Just moving around.
But like we're all having these dreams and stuff. And I've had dreams about jiu-jitsu since it's been off, and I'm just like, damn it, because she said the worst part about it was she had this dream and she had some good rolls in, and then she wakes up, she's like, shit. I wasn't rolling, like I was sitting here.
Yeah. Well, let's actually touch on that a little bit. The question I was going to mention to you is Green Ninja asks, I find it hard to find the motivation to do home training.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my favorite thing about jiu-jitsu is the community.
Mm-hmm.
You have any tips? And I agree.
The community.
The thing you actually was going to do this video about it, but you posted about one thing you miss.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about what I miss the most out of jiu-jitsu, and I think it is definitely the human interaction,
mm-hmm.
the community kind of. A lot of it's like the bullshitting after the training. Like
it's the training mixed with all that, right?
Yeah.
Because like that hug that I was talking about,
yes,
that hug meant that we trained, that we probably bullshitted, that we like got there. All these beautiful things happen, and so there's so many things. And I think one of the important things is that if you're at home and you're doing some home training, here's a couple tips that I think might be useful to you. These are useful to me. One, set up some sort of dedicated space or quasi-dedicated space to doing something like that, right? So I have a carpet, like a little, like I guess you would say a rug, on top of the carpet in my bedroom. That rug is where it's soft enough so it gives me a little bit of cushion for my knees, and that's where I do my stretches every night. And that's what that space is for. It's for me to stretch and kind of hang out right there, right on the side of my bed. I have some yoga mats and stuff like that in another room where I can do little workouts and push-ups and stuff like that. Luckily, I still have access to the gym because I can go in there by myself. But again, it's a dedicated space to that. What I would say is you really definitely want to set up some dedicated space to the thing that you're trying to do. Even like with my writing and with my videos and everything else that I do, I have dedicated space that's there for that thing. The other thing is you've got to set up rituals, right? Because rituals become habits and habits become automatic. Once something is automatic, you don't have to think anymore. And so what I would do is I would figure out, design it, right? This is something that's really important. Design what you want your daily life to look like, right? Design when you want to work out. Pick out the workout that you're going to do, and then make that a consistent habit, right? Every day you're going to do some workout, even if it's one day you're doing like an at-home workout, doing some push-ups and some squats or something. Next day might be stretching. Next day might be like something else, who knows? But pick a time and make that your consistent ritual through this mess, right? Just like your training. A lot of times we all have our rituals for going to the gym. I go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 o'clock or whatever it might be. You have these habits formed. And then now, like a lot of us, for me, for instance, like every night around 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, I feel really weird because my body's so used to, for 20 years almost, but more often than not, I was training. And so it feels weird because my habit's off. And it's almost like not brushing my teeth. And so you want to do that. You want to have that dedicated space, and then you want to begin to set up rituals. And again, when the rituals become habits, and that habit's formed to the point of like it's automatic, like brushing your teeth, washing your hands, whatever it might be. When that becomes automatic, you don't have to think anymore. It doesn't require a ton of discipline. You just get it done. And so what I would say is that would be my biggest encouragement to you is, first off, make your space, and then pick out a bunch of workouts that you're going to do, and then pick out those days and the times to do them, and that's what you're going to do. I mean, that's something that's been useful to me.
All right. A couple more, Chew?
Yeah.
Let's see. I think we got a good amount of questions.
Let's see here. Are you staying on your diet in the Rona times? Hung Eck. Hung, I am absolutely staying on my diet, brother. In fact, I in my little resource that I prepared for everybody that was free, if you want to get it, and I actually have a video coming out next week talking about dieting, but it's super important. I think it's even more important now that your diet stays in place than if it does when you were training, because your activity level's dropping. And trust me, I came back to the gym after one of my layoffs back in 2007. I came back to the gym as tons of fun, Chewy. I was chunky. I gained like 25 pounds or so, and it was all around the midsection. And when I came back to training, I had to start cutting weight, and trying to cut weight is sort of drop my caloric intake as I'm increasing my training and trying to get back in shape. That's an inverse relationship. That's not a fun place to be. It was brutal. Whereas when I came back from my 2014 layoff, I came back actually lighter than when I left because I was fasting a lot and I was just not eating as much because I wasn't doing the activity level. I came back lighter, but then when I came back to training, I was able to just train hard, eat a lot, and then just get back to normal, and it wasn't a bad thing. So you absolutely should keep your diet in check. And again, one of the things that you guys could do, if you're out there and you've got a crap diet and you got a crap diet, which is more people than not sometimes, make this time where you're not focused on training. Focus on your diet. Start meal prepping. Start cleaning out your cupboard. Get rid of all the junk food in there. Here's the big thing that someone was asking Jess the other day. They're like, "Hey, have you guys been splurging on food?" She's like, "No, because we don't have anything. Because this asshole won't buy any delicious food." Right, pointing at me. Because for me, I know that I don't have willpower. If I've got ice cream sitting there, if I've got potato, I'm gonna eat those potato chips. I'm gonna eat that ice cream. I'm not above it. I like ice cream, but I don't keep it in the house. And during this time where you're sitting around the house and you'll start getting bored, you should absolutely not have that stuff in there where you're going to just splurge on it. You should instead cook meals. So when you get hungry, you eat the meals. Trust me, after this is all said and done, when it's done, this work that you're putting in now, this focus you're putting now will definitely be helpful to you. And when you come back to training, if you keep a good diet in place, you can keep that habit going on into your training. And trust me, when you get back to training, if you have a good diet and an improved diet, your diet's got better, you will notice a huge difference in the way that you perform. Your body is a machine. If you give that machine junk fuel, don't expect it to be performing well. But if you give it good fuel, it's going to repair faster. It's going to recover. You're going to recover faster. You're going to perform better. A lot of times when people change their diets, guys in the gym, They're like, Chewy, man, I don't need that 4th cup of coffee to get through the day. I don't need this or that, whatever. I mean, trust me, it's a huge difference. So work on that diet while you guys are out. So,
and one thing you talked about, since you're not training at such a high level right now, you talked about incorporating intermittent fasting, which is a great way to keep your calories, at bay.
Yeah. Well, and for me, like, I started fasting back in the day, as far back as when I was like 17 years old. I just called it skipping breakfast. We didn't call it fasting back then. It's so funny. Everything has to have these cool terms. Like, there's intermittent fasting. I remember I started doing it in 2014. Didn't know it was intermittent fasting, and then now it's like, hey, like, don't get too close to each other. It's called social distancing, right? We always have to have acronyms and cool terms for everything to make them stick. I understand what it is. It's useful anyway. But yeah, I fast. Like, on days where I'm not working out, I don't like to fast on days where I work out.
Right.
But on days that I don't work out, I'll fast anywhere from 14 to 20 hours. Hell, why not? And the thing is, what's really cool about fasting, besides just the caloric deficit you're putting yourself into, you're exercising control over food. Again, a lot of times, and again, I'm really big into meditation. I'm big into awareness in these things. And one of the things that you're trying to get at when you meditate is awareness. Yeah. It's not about a lot of people are like, I just want to be empty. I don't want my mind to think about it. That's not so much to me what meditation's about. Maybe at some point you get to the point of no mind, right? It's not thinking. It's not thinking. It's no mind, right? But the other thing that you get from meditation is awareness, right? It's making distance from your emotions, from your feelings, and the self, right? Yourself is not your emotions. They're two different things, right? Like earlier today, like Jess and I snipped at each other about something, and I was just kind of irritated with her. And then I was getting ready to leave to come here, and I stopped. I was like, felt it. I noticed it. I was like, I don't want to be angry at her. I'm going to come back. I gave her a kiss. I'm like, hey, I don't want to be angry at you. I love you. Whatever, and it was fine, right? Notice it, because a lot of times we let those emotions grab us and take over. And it happens with food. People go in there and all of a sudden they're like, I'm not even really hungry. They're just bored. And they start rummaging through the cabinets. It's like, wait, notice it, right? And a lot of times I use the analogy of the itch, right? You get an itch, and I encourage everyone to do this, because I think it's such a cool.
We just both, as you were saying there, we both scratched. I scratched my back and you scratched your head at the exact same time.
But if you have an itch, just to bring awareness, right? If you have an itch the next time, don't scratch it. Just see what happens. It'll go away. It goes away. It's not life or death. But in that moment when you feel it, you want to scratch it with all your focus, right? Yeah. But it'll go away. And then you take that same idea with the fasting, right? Because if you start fasting and you're not used to it, you're going to get hunger pangs. Your body's going to be like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I'm going to die. Please go eat. We always eat at 8 o'clock every day. Please go eat. And then at about 8:30, 8:45, it's like, I'm not hungry anymore. Yeah. It just goes away. And again, it's exercising some control over your food and your habits and stuff, and creating distance from those feelings you have. And again, I think it's a beautiful thing that even happens on jiu-jitsu sometimes, because sometimes when you're rolling, you might get frustrated. You might get irritated. But again, you know that you can't honor those feelings, because you being frustrated, you being angry, you being whatever is not going to serve you well when you're doing that. And so again, you take that off the mats too, where you say, look, these feelings don't always serve me very well. So it's about creating that distance there.
All right. A couple more? We'll do a few more.
Yeah. A-Dog Yo says, do you watch Ramsey Dewey? I the only video that I watched of him, I watched that one where he's I guess him and the Wing Chun dude were going back and forth. I haven't really watched much else. Like the Wing Chun, the guy that when he talks like this, he goes out smash you in the face.
Who's Randy Dewey?
Ramsey Dewey.
Sorry.
I don't know who he is. He's a MMA related guy. I think.
Okay.
I don't know much about him. I mean, I'm sorry.
The other guy's name is
Master
Wong.
Yeah.
He's funny, dude. I love that guy.
With Master Wong, I don't agree with some of the techniques, but I love the energy, because he's like, you got a problem. You got to take the guy. You got to smash him in the face. You got to elbow in the face, and you got to cut his neck off. And he's just going crazy. He's so aggressive, and it's funny.
And he wears his tracksuit.
Always a tracksuit. Yeah.
Yep.
Got the problem.
Oh. All right.
When Hassan does fitness. Hassan, you were asking about starting a channel. I could definitely probably talk about that. There's a lot to talking about the channel stuff, about how to grow one, but that'd be more of I don't know, send me a message if you want. But you do have a question about what was my record when I competed in MMA. My final record was 13-0-1. Well, actually, excuse me, my combined record, amateur and pro. My pro record was 3-0. Amateur record was 10-0-1. I had 1 no contest, 10 wins as an amateur. So that was my thing. I didn't fight as a pro, I got into the regional scene a little bit, and then I kind of just lost my interest in it, so I just really, I realized I liked jiu-jitsu more. It really wasn't my thing. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, but I was not as into it as I was jiu-jitsu, so I'm just like, So.
Gotcha. All right. Maybe do one more, Chew?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do one more. Find a good one. There was somebody did ask about like lifting. They lift 6 days a week, but they want to start jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
And they want to do 2 to 3 times a week for jiu-jitsu while they lift. I was like, I don't know if that's the best idea.
2 to 3 days a week. What do you mean?
They lift 6 days a week,
and they want to add
jiu-jitsu 2 to 3 days a week.
If you're lifting 6 days a week and you're doing jiu-jitsu, I would probably say drop your lifting down a little bit. I would probably here's what I would do. If you're lifting a bunch, first off, if you're lifting 6 days a week, you're probably doing, I would imagine, probably more bodybuilding style. I don't know. Usually with powerlifting stuff, maybe you're doing powerlifting. I don't know. But what I would say is I would drop down the volume of the lifting and maybe schedule like your start of jiu-jitsu during a deload phase where you're kind of easing up on the gas pedal a little bit, because when you begin to train hard, your body in jiu-jitsu, your body is going to take a beating and you have to acclimate to it. And if you're basically burning the candle at both ends, it's going to be tough, and you would want to save some energy for those rolling and training sessions.
Yeah. I think I agree with that. It's just a lot of stress. Like you're not going to have enough time to recover.
Yeah.
And we're learning more and more that recovery, it's just not ideal to really go hard all the time and never let your body, you're just going to break your body down.
Absolutely.
And you may be able to go to a high level for some time, but eventually your body's going to fizzle out. So it's going to break down. So, in my opinion, lifting, since you've been doing it for a while, is probably you're going to be more efficient in your lifting. It's not going to require as much, even though you're going to be lifting maybe a lot of weight. It's not as physically taxing because your body is used to that type of stress.
Sure.
Jiu-jitsu is a different type of stress.
Yeah.
It's completely different than lifting. Obviously, it complements lifting complements jiu-jitsu, but it's a totally different type of positions, movements. You're controlling someone else, controlling your body, so it's very different. You're not just controlling an inanimate object.
Right.
So
Albert Padilla, I probably said it wrong. Padilla. What do you think about the Gracie hatred towards Eddie Bravo and Brazilians having an ego overall? I don't want to lump Brazilians into a group because I know a lot of friggin' cool Brazilian dudes, man.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to lump that into and say they all have egos, because trust me, man. First off, here's the thing about that word ego. We misuse it in jiu-jitsu all the time. We say that, oh, you have an ego. Oh, his ego is whatever. Everybody's got an ego. Ego is a self-construction, right? Ego basically is your construction based upon all the experiences, who you think you are, right? That's your ego. Everybody's got one. You have to have one. And when you do jiu-jitsu, you're going to have one. You're going to grow. You're going to change your ego when you train. You're going to have one. Because if you don't have an ego, you don't know who the hell you are, right? That's kind of what it is if you're using that term as it was created, as it was intended. But it's about having that ego and allowing it to be healthy, right? So when you lose, if your ego begins to set expectations about who you think you are, and then things change, like say, like I beat Bob yesterday, and now your ego's like, well, I'm better than Bob. Now your ego screwed up, because now it said that it was better than something. It became to set an expectation. So then when you lose, now you're frustrated. It's not that you have an ego is the problem. It's that your ego's unhealthy. It's become fixated on this thing about who you are. It's not able to adapt. So you could say having a big ego or having a fragile ego, having an insecure ego, all these things. For instance, I was really, really crazy when I rolled. I was always trying to win, and it wasn't because I had an inflated ego. It was because I was so fragile every time, because I was so insecure as a person at the time. When someone would do something to me that would cause me to lose, I would just flip out. I would get so upset and frustrated and everything else. Rant done. Now, as far as why they have hatred toward him, I don't know, man. I know that originally it seemed like when I was coming up early on, one of the reasons why they didn't like him is because they would say, well, he takes moves and calls them his own, right? For instance, like his twister. That was
guillotine.
That was a wrestling guillotine, yeah. So it was a wrestling pin in wrestling. You couldn't crank the back like he does, but you could use it for a pin. And we had several guys that were good with it. But that was one of the things. They were, it's what I used to hear, And he just named stuff. And like I remember seeing people say, some guys call this the rubber guard, but this has been done a long time ago. It's like he just named some stuff. You know, like, I mean, as far as that, you know, like, who cares? Like, you know, I don't know. Like, I don't know why there's a lot of hatred. And it was funny because I was talking to my buddy Brandon McGaffron, and he's a 10th Planet black belt. Him and I was talking because one time this 10th Planet guy came into my gym to buy some mats. And when he came in, he had a hoodie on, and his shirt, you know, the 10th Planet logo was kind of sticking out a little bit. So he said, hey, man, 10th Planet. So he zipped up his hoodie to cover up the 10th Planet logo. And I looked at him, I was like, bro, why are you covering up your logo? He's like, you know, 10th Planet, man, you know. And I'm like, looking at him, like, whoa, I'm a white guy in Kentucky, bro. I don't care. Like, I'm just about jiu-jitsu. I'm not about, like, I don't care if you're 10th Planet or whomever. I don't care. Like, I'll learn from anyone.
Exactly.
You know, like, right. And again, that's where I go back to, don't draw lines in the sand and be like, well, you're over there and I'm over here. Dude, be willing to learn from everybody because there's good stuff everywhere. And but I talked to Brandon, and I was like, dude, do you guys really get hate like that? And he said, you know, from some people for sure. And I was like, damn, it sucks, you know. You know,
I think he said it's gotten a little bit.
It's gotten better.
He
said it's gotten better. You know,
but it's like, and I don't think Eddie Bravo ever was like, hey, I created these positions. No, he named them because it gives him a way to categorize, to explain, to let people know what he's doing.
John Danaher did it. He basically gave him. He went to their original Japanese names. Right. It's like he basically, instead of calling it like, you know, the single leg X. Senkaku. He calls it Ashigarami, right? Yeah. They used to call it single leg X. I mean, it's like it's just a naming thing. It's the system, right. And this is where you got to get out of the. This is where you have to make sure that you get out of the locked mindset of it's supposed to be this way. Right. We're talking about art, bro. Jiu-jitsu to me is like it's an art form. You know, your body is the paintbrush, and your movements, you know, are the paint, and then the canvas is the mats, right? You make art. And you create your own style. You create your own art. And again, the more colors you have to work with, the more like tools and adjustment, whatever it is. I'm not an artist, right? I have I can draw a stick figure. But you know, the more things that you have at your disposal, the more art you can create. Right. So why on earth would you limit yourself? And all they're doing is basically giving things different names for their style so that they can teach their students more effectively. Who cares? Yeah. You know. But as far as where the hatred comes from, I don't know, man. Maybe because he beat Hoyler. You know, maybe they didn't like it. I don't know. I can't say that for sure. Yeah. You know, but I don't know. But I mean, it definitely was a thing back in the day. People like, you know, I think here's what I think it probably was. You see this, right? Like tribalism, right? Where again, we're doing it this way. He comes out and says he's not doing gi anymore. He was a guy that did gi forever, right? And then he doesn't do any do gi. He's like, this is the best way to do jiu-jitsu, right? I don't even agree with that. Right. Yeah, I don't agree. I do gi. I don't think it's the best. I don't agree with that way of saying it. But I respect his way of saying that because again, you're doing your thing, bro. I'm cool with that. I respect that. I don't necessarily agree. I'm going to do it this way, but I respect your position on doing it your way. Right. You know, and I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because I remember when I was first coming up, man, it was like you wear the gi no matter what. You know, there was no option. You know, and so he comes along and says that, and you know, a lot of people did not like that sort of view. You know, so again, it just I don't know.
I think part of it may be that he was a foreigner as well, coming in and beating one of the legends in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, beating him at their with his specific style of grappling. I think people don't like that. And again, like I agree. You have to. I think that you should train both. I mean, you can prefer one, but I think to be a complete jiu-jitsu practitioner, you should have the ability to do both. You may be better at one, you may prefer one, and that's okay. You know, but I think doing both, and again, I think it depends on jiu-jitsu is best done in what rule set are you talking about? You know, what environment are you looking at? You know, are you looking at the street setting, like where you're on the street fighting somebody? Well, people are not going to have rash guards on; they're going to have shirts on and stuff like that. Yeah. You know, and again, is the gi terribly realistic? Some aspects, no. You know, shirts tear. You know, not going to be as thick. You're not going to have a deep collar you can grab into and get a good hold of.
But realistic. What the hell do you mean by realistic?
It just depends on the environment you're in.
Well, the thing is like, see, people get in this weird thing about, oh, well, this isn't realistic. Okay. A lot of self-defense techniques that I've seen taught are not realistic. Nobody comes at you like, raw, like, and starts to direct, I'm going to choke you straight up. Nobody does that. Yeah. Like, you've watched fights all over the place.
Watch McDojo Live's videos.
Jesus, dude. Like, it's like, you know, they say, oh, this was, you know, like, that's not even realistic. Yeah. Like, watch people. It's a chaotic mess. Right, like a lot of times the gi is absolutely realistic for gi jiu-jitsu. No gi and all the spandex is absolutely realistic for that. You know, if you want to talk about the carryover benefit, one of the most important things you get from jiu-jitsu has nothing to do with just the specific techniques themselves. It has to do with your ability to deal with stress, right? Because when you see people when they're in stressful situations, if they are not used to those stressful situations, they friggin' freeze up. Like there's so many people that, come into jiu-jitsu and the first time they roll, they're like frozen. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just not used to that physicality, right?
Yeah.
And we warm them up to it. And a lot of times my students who and myself included, who have had to use jiu-jitsu in a situation to protect themselves, they weren't thinking, well, I have this, this guy is attacking me. Now I'm going to use this really cool technique from that I learned in the no-gi or the rigi, whatever. You're just autopilot. Boom. It happens and you're going.
Yeah.
Right? And again, there's a lot of stuff to be taken in, but a lot of, again, if you've got good basic takedowns, you've got good body control, you've got all of these things. I mean, that's the stuff that you're going to need. You don't want to get lost in the weeds of what happens if this guy is over here, there's a guy in the rafters, and then there's it's like where people come up with crazy situations. It's like, how many times that happened to you? Most of us, unless you're in a different place, most of us have been in a situation where maybe we were in a fight or something, but it's not like there's all these crazy variables that people want to come up to either discredit the gi or the no gi or just to credit jiu-jitsu in general. I'm like, people are like, well, would it work against 5 people at a time? I'm like, yeah, but you probably nothing's going to work against 5 people at a time unless you've got some distance and a gun or something or you're really fast and you can run, and even with the gun thing, if they're really close on you, you're screwed, bro.
There's limitations. There's limitations to everything. Jiu-jitsu is not perfect. Yeah. It's not complete. Every martial art, that's why you have mixed martial arts, because you use jiu-jitsu, you use wrestling, you use Muay Thai, you use boxing, kickboxing, whatever. Use everything. And that's what...
Go ahead.
I mean, that's just it.
One of the best uses of jiu-jitsu I think I've ever had with fighting related, off the mats, was not fighting. Because
that's a great point.
Because a lot of people, right, who don't train, they have to prove something. Someone called me a bitch. Who gives a shit, right? I don't care if a guy called me a bitch. Call me a bitch. Come to my gym and train with me if you want to. I'll show you, right? I've had people call me names and I walk away because I don't care. You know what I mean? I was like, I want to roll. I want to do that stuff. I don't want to get in a fight with this dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'll be the bitch. I'll walk away. And I'm cognizant of my emotions, my feelings, because I've felt them come up so many times during rolls where I got frustrated and I got angry. I remember having a guy at a bar call me something. And I remember feeling that anger come up in my chest. And I'm like, I'm going to show him. And then I was like, wait a second. I was looking at him like, are you really that upset about this? Do you really care about what this person thinks? Are you going to remember this person tomorrow? Nope. Who gives a shit? Let's walk off. Boom. Yeah. I'll be that. So one of the things that I've gotten from martial arts in general is being in control of that, right? Being in control of those feelings and not feeling like I had to go prove something. I was able to walk away.
Yeah.
And so I think that one of the most important uses of martial arts again is to be able to walk away because you feel nothing to prove, because every day you're proving something to yourself. Every day you're challenging yourself. You're not one of those friggin' dummies that's out at a bar trying to drink and trying to be the tough guy because day to day he does nothing that's just satisfying in his life. Right? You're doing something that's satisfying. You're doing something that's challenging, that's pushing you, that's making you a better person every time you train. A lot of people don't have that. So when they go out there, the misery that's inside of them is trying to escape, and it's trying to drag other people into it. And you can be separate from that. You can be like, you know what? I'm not going to be even like the people that were when the whole everything's fine now, because obviously grocery stores have food. But when everybody was freaking out and they were stuffing toilet paper, I was like, I'm not going to be one of those people. I'm a warrior. Right, I'm a fighter, man. That's what I do. I'm challenged every day. A challenging situation comes around, I don't freak out. I'm gonna go and get what I need, and I'm gonna make sure that because I don't want to hoard too much, because I want to make sure that everybody else can get what they need, because we're all in this shit together. You're like, I'm not gonna be one of those people that panics. I'm not gonna be one of those people that succumbs to fear. Yeah. Right? And if we run out of food, so be it. I'm not going to succumb to fear. But you see that, and you see those people that don't do those things. They don't challenge. They're just becoming slaves to their emotion. They have no separation from it. The world's coming in. I got to get the Purell and the toilet paper to make toilet paper sandwiches, right? Like you're a different breed when you train, and you've trained for a long time. You get a sense of clarity, a sense of calmness that you can get from this stuff. And again, I don't care if people disagree with it. It makes you a different person.
100%.
Right? And so that's something where you look and you can look around at people on a day-to-day basis and you can see, you don't have this.
Yeah.
Some people do, and they get it in different forms. Maybe they go to yoga and that challenges them. Maybe they get into some sort of particular thing that challenges them in a different way, but they have something that challenges them and satisfies them and makes them become aware of what's going on in them. We get it through jiu-jitsu, but other people have it through different means. But you see those people, and you see the difference between the people that don't. Two different worlds.
When you have your thing, and like for me, like as you're talking, I'm like, I want to go fucking roll right now. Like I'm like sitting, I'm like, let's go. Like I'm just, if you like do jiu-jitsu and you hear that, what he just said, and like you don't feel that, like, do you want to just get out there and just train right now? I don't know. That's powerful shit, man. I mean, it does. Like I was very, I would say I was very unsure of myself as a young man. In my 20s. I was not very confident.
Yeah.
I would avoid confrontations because of fear.
Sure.
It would be the wrong reason to avoid. I wouldn't avoid because I felt like, I can handle myself. This is just not the best. I would avoid it out of fear, and I hated that feeling. I hated feeling that way. And jiu-jitsu's given me so much confidence to where I feel like, I don't have to avoid a confrontation because I'm scared of this person. I'm not saying I'm going to beat every single person up that challenges me or whatever if I do get in a fight. I mean, jiu-jitsu's not perfect.
Sure.
Anything can happen. But I feel a lot more confident walking down the street. I feel like, I'm not scared of that person.
You're not walking around with the fear.
No, and that's such an empowering
if the challenge
thing.
If the challenge comes, you're ready for it.
And I was talking actually to my neighbor. We had the weirdest thing. So my wife set up this thing where we met our neighbor across the hall or across the yard, and we had a beer. They had a beer. We had a beer, and we just talked to him. We did the social distancing.
Oh
thing.
shit! Okay.
It was the weirdest shit ever.
It's so weird.
And
isn't it?
yeah, so my wife and his wife put it together, and she started jiu-jitsu. She's training at like a Gracie school, but like she does like a women's empowerment class, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is incredible. Like what you're doing, like even just women training, you're empowering yourself. And like, that's why jiu-jitsu, I feel like, is so important for women. If it's like the thing you resist the most, that's why you should do it.
It's important for everybody.
So, yes, it is. But
and I mean, like when I'm
for
talking,
sure.
It doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. It can be anything that accesses that warrior inside of you, because everybody's got a warrior.
Exactly.
Right?
You said yoga, which is a great point. Yoga is one of those things.
You're accessing something that's inside of you that we don't access all the time, right?
Right.
For women are told, hey, don't do that. You're a woman. Don't do that way. Now, granted, there are people that don't have that sentiment, right? But, for the most part, women are told to be, just don't do that way, right? And if they start to be aggressive, they're a bitch. A guy, oh, don't be so aggressive. You're being toxic, right? Then you get no. Like we all got a warrior inside of us, and we all need to access it, because there's going to be times where things aren't going to be nice. There's going to be times where challenges is put in front of you. Just like now, we have a challenge. Everybody's got a challenge in this whole friggin' world, right? How are you going to deal with it?
Yep.
If you're not used to dealing with challenges, you fold. You give up any power that you have. If you're used to dealing with challenges, you understand that every single challenge you have makes you more intelligent. It makes you into something different.
Yeah.
If you choose to step up and swing and go after it. Or you could fold and just go, oh, terrible. Things are terrible, right?
Right.
There's always something you can do.
Right.
And that kind of goes along with the question, and we'll kind of maybe end this afterwards because I know we're starting to go even deeper. Hassan's throwing the questions out. Do you think getting into jiu-jitsu would help someone if they're naturally aggressive? Absolutely, brother. I was naturally aggressive, super aggressive. I mean, I'm a naturally aggressive person. Everything that I do is aggressive. Even like my buddy that I've been playing chess with, we were just joking around this morning. He's like, you're a very aggressive chess player. Like, I'm an aggressive jiu-jitsu practitioner. When I would play video games, I was always like the character that would go after. So I'm just an aggressive person. It's the way I am. And one of the things that jiu-jitsu did is it helped me channel that aggression, because when I was younger, it would come out in the wrong places, right? I had a temper. I'd flare up. I wouldn't be in control of it. Mm-hmm. Again, just like we all have a warrior, you can't let your warrior get ahead of you. It has to be in connection with you and what you want to do. And so for me, like, again, jiu-jitsu has given me that ability to harness that aggressive energy that I have and put it towards everything. Right. Whether that I take that aggressive energy to making a video, whether I'm taking that aggressive energy to talk to you guys and get all pumped up and whatever, or I take that aggressive energy to a competition, I friggin' turn on the intensity, go after it. Right. I have control of it. It takes time, but it's absolutely useful. In that situation. So,
and on the other side of the coin, I think it's very useful if you're very timid, very kind of, not an aggressive person. Right. I think it can build and it can take some of those things out. So it can bring some of that stuff out, that side of you, which I think is important to have a good balance.
Yeah. Everybody's got an aggressive side to them. They may have told themselves, they may have been conditioned to believe that you don't. Everybody's got one. But what happens is you lose access to it. Some people lose control of it, like I did, right? And then some people, they it's become a fire that's friggin'. It's like it's been put out, but there's like a little warm coal left. And basically, through channeling the aggression and doing something that like jiu-jitsu or something that has this nature to it, you start to get the fire going again. Right. And then again, just like any fire, if it's in control, it can heat a home. It can warm food. It can make food. It can keep people warm and safe, whatever. But like any fire, If it goes out, it's not usable. But if it gets out of control, it can just tear everything else around you up. So again, it's about the being in control of that particular aggression, that fire that you have inside of you. But it can absolutely help. So,
Chewy, people had mentioned a few. They had asked about resources on stretching. How do they get? Will you remind them how they can get your content really fast?
You got a couple options. So one is that I put out the free resource. It's a free at-home training resource. If you go, it was this past week, I put up a video talking about how many times I was going to do videos this week, and there's a free training guide. Go look on that page. There's a little link down below. If you don't, and that thing's not going to be free forever. And then the other side of it is that if you want to, you can also just put in Jiu-Jitsu stretches, and I've got several different videos where I do stretches. You can check it out, and then if you want to dive more into it, because again, I'm not the most flexible person. I'm stretching because it helps me feel better, and I focus on the areas that are tight with me. But if you want like another stretching resource, one of the yoga teachers on YouTube that I follow is Yoga with Adrienne.
Yeah, she's awesome.
I like her. So she does her stuff, and she's pretty good. I like some of her routines and things like that. So I've gone through that. So those are a couple of resources for you.
Yeah, and then Yoga for BJJ is one that's out there. It's been out there for a long time. And then we have a Patreon. We have some stuff on Patreon. We did a little bit of stretching sequence. I think you posted that. Just some stuff that's worked for you. Just your blend.
Yeah, in the Jiu-Jitsu Patreon and in the Jiu-Jitsu Vault, both of them. There's a series that I took my students through stretching that we recorded.
Yeah, and it's just useful. It's just what you do. It doesn't mean that's going to be what everybody needs. Again, it's a great way to like assess, go through some movements and see what really feels restricted on you. You know, usually when we're talking about jiu-jitsu, hip flexors, you know, it could be some adductors, hamstrings, so groin muscles, hamstrings, maybe your pecs if you're looking at upper body, and then look at the inverse of that. Some of those opposite areas, maybe you have a little weakness or not activating or kicking in as well. So stretching is really, really good. I think it's useful as a recovery tool. Don't neglect the strengthening, because that can actually open up some things. And also, and this is weird for people to think about, if a muscle is tight, does not mean it's strong, okay? So a muscle can be tight, and it may still have weakness to it. So one thing you can do, which is a great thing to do, is eccentric strengthening, negatives, lengthening. So if you have tight hamstrings, RDLs.
Yeah.
Working the RDLs is powerful. It's a great way. It's a great way to build strength, resiliency, and also it's a great way to elongate. You'll see that if you do like RDLs, Romanian deadlifts.
I do them every week.
Okay. Get your first set in, right? Say you do 3 sets of 10. You do your first set, you're kind of tight. Second set, you go a little deeper, right? Third set, then you're like, oh man, I'm almost getting to the floor. So you can see how that muscle elongates and it responds really well. So
plus for people with lower back issues, man, like posterior chain work is so friggin' important, and it gets very little focus from most people that don't really dive deep into lifting, like big power lifters and people that have to do it for performance. They're big on posterior chain, but a lot of people that are lifting for aesthetics and things like that, they really don't put much on it because you can't even see what's going on back there, right? You can see your quads, you can see all that stuff. You can't see the hammies. Can't really see them. You can feel them. You can't, but your glutes, your hamstrings, all that stuff, man. That's been one of the areas I've been focused on a lot. Is my hamstrings, my glutes, stretching the hip flexors, and then getting the hip extension so I can get that power in my legs. But also, it's done wonders for my lower back, my hips, everything else.
100%.
And hamstrings, like you said, when you do those hammies, those RDLs, and again, you really focus on that eccentric portion. You don't have to go as heavy. It gives you this really cool dynamic stretch, and man. The first time you go through those, your legs will be sore like you've never felt before. Yeah, but it's really good stuff.
That's why it actually causes those micro tears. I mean, it's really effective. And another thing, you posted a video I think on how to make exercises more challenging.
Yeah, doing tempos.
I mean that tempo squats. Dude, say for me, I have a sticky point, I call it quote unquote sticky point in my squat, where if I can get above or if I'm below it or above it, I can kind of push through, and that's where I get stuck, right? Work that area, do pause at that area where that is, or even do isometrics, kind of holds and things like that against some resistance. I mean, that's a great way to build. Now, that's going to increase your squat. It's just like the length tension relationship. There's an optimal, like say if I flex your bicep all the way, you're not going to be as strong here or at the end range, but somewhere in the middle is where that length and that tension is ideal and you're stronger, right? And so injuries don't even really occur at that. They occur more kind of end ranges too, where you're weaker. So
and also I think
strengthening in those planes.
It makes you just get overall much stronger from those positions when you slow them down. Like it's one of those things where, like with my lifting, a lot of times I'll mix in those tempos from time to time. So like if I'm doing bench press, for instance, instead of just banging it off my chest, I'll come down, touch your chest, let it pause, and then come back up. Complete control of that weight the whole time. You got to lower the weight down, but then when you eventually start to go back to the normal stuff, you're way more strong in the whole position.
Think about applicability to jiu-jitsu. What are we doing? Like somebody's on top of you. You're here, right? You're positioning yourself. Whatever you're doing. If you're hip escaping, whatever you're doing. Like it's some of those things. You're in isometric. You're like in a
hole, like
end range,
even like a frame, like your whole
frame,
right?
Triangle choke. Think about triangle choke. Yeah. Sometimes you don't have it sunk in as deep. You have to hold that position, reposition, whatever. You have to keep that person. Their posture has to be, controlled. So that'll wear on your hamstring. So if working on holds, prolonged holds is also really important. So we can go on for hours, man.
Guys, we've been locked up in the house.
This is like 2 hours. Like we were going.
He's like the first person that I've seen besides Jess in like a week. So like I went to the grocery store on Monday, and then I've been at the gym by myself, and then I see him. He's like the first person I've seen. So it's like,
I miss you, brother. I really miss you.
I get to talk to someone today in person.
We got a lot.
We're totally not social distancing, but
that's okay, man.
I haven't seen one else.
We're like 4 feet away. It's fine.
So anyway, guys, Alberto, just to end this, I haven't thought about doing a Discord channel. Man, I honestly, I probably wouldn't have the time for it. Brandon Ballou runs the Jiu-Jitsu fans group in Facebook, and he runs that, but I just wouldn't have the time to get in there and chat with you and do a good job of it. I'm getting ready to use Zoom with some of the students in the gym. I'm gonna test it out.
Nice,
and then
it's good.
And then I'm gonna do Zoom with the Vault, because I want to test it out. So like basically, you can go in there, you can kind of chat with people.
Yeah, you can live stream directly through.
Yeah, so I was going to do that with some of the people in the gym in the Vault and things like that. But I wouldn't have a time to do it all the time. So anyway, guys, it's been fun hanging out with you guys. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're healthy. Yeah. Stay strong. Look, I know we're all in the situation where it just sucks right now because we're going through it, but you're going to make it through. It's not the end of everything. We're going to be all right. We're going to make it through. We'll be back on the mats again. If you missed the beginning rant that I talked about, go back and listen to it. But I'll give you the gist. When this thing is over, when you go back home and you get back to normal and everything's kind of moving along again, humming along like normal, don't go back to sleep. Don't forget that this whole existence that you have is so fleeting, and then in a moment it can be changed, taken away, everything, right? And when you go back to training and you're on the mats with everyone and you're with your family, hell, right now you're waking up in the morning, the sun is shining, you might have someone that you love next to you. It's a hell of a good day, right? It could be much worse. So take those moments, those beautiful moments that you have, and don't let them get away from you. Even right now while you're going through it, there's beautiful things. Every morning, wake up and think about something you're thankful for. It'll change your perspective. Every morning I wake up and I start off my day every single morning with the first 3 things that I'm grateful for. And it's just simple stuff. I do it every morning, and it's just such a different way. I woke up this morning, I was like, the sun is shining. Felt that sun touch my skin. I woke up next to Jess, and she's there. I mean, she's healthy. She's there with me, And I woke up and I had food on the table. Food on the table. I woke up next to someone I love, and the sun is shining. It's a hell of a good day, right?
Absolutely.
Don't forget it. And again, this kind of situation kind of wakes us up from our bullshit that we get sucked into, and the jonesing for cars and all that other stuff, and reminds us that life's a little different. It's a hard existence, and we're lucky to have everything that we do. So
yeah. See you guys. Thank you to our sponsors again, Charlotte's Web, CBD, and then Epic Roll BJJ.
This stuff's been a shameless plug, but it's good. This stuff's been a game. This is just one of their things, but their stuff has been a friggin' absolutely, for me, it's been essential when I go to sleep.
For rest.
I'm not training, so I don't get as tired at night, and so I've been like I have to take it every night, otherwise I don't sleep very well.
And use the promo code Chewjitsu. It'll help support the podcast as well. I didn't say that before. For
Epic Roll,
like 15%.
BJJ.
Yeah, you guys will save 15% as well. We appreciate that. So
thanks, guys. Appreciate you.